right down there. This is can. This let's go.
It's already 6:31.
On my clock, it's 6:30, but you better hurry up.
I got 6:31.
Oh, no, it says 6:30. I got a atomic clock.
Oh, sorry.
Now it's 6:31 late.
See how you
Now it says 6:31.
for the lunch girl. Yeah, no, where did I get that at though? You buy it at the when we're at the meeting. There's a guy there that sells t-shirts and shirts. Okay, they gave me a t-shirt.
All right, notice hereby given, Lago Vista City Council is holding a regular meeting on Thursday, October 18th, 2018, beginning at 6:31 p.m. in the City Council chambers at City Hall, 5803 Thunderbird, Lago Vista, Texas, as prescribed by VTCA Government Code Section 551.041 to consider the following agenda items. Items do not have to be taken in the same order as shown in the meeting notice. Senator, please note we have all of our council members here. We have our city manager, Josh, yourself, Danny, our police chief, Dave with IT, Star with finance, Roy with our development services, and is there anybody I've missed?
We're missing our attorney.
We have no attorney here tonight, and don't see Eric. All right. I believe that's everybody. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, citizen comments. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, council is prohibited from acting or discussing other than factual responses to specific questions. Any items not on the agenda? Let's see. Who do I have here first? Okay. That's down there. Richard Sterry.
Get something to lean on here. If you've been outside today, you know it's raining pretty hard. If you ride around down by the lake, it's pretty terrible in places. We've got some low water crossings that are going to give us more trouble before we're done. So what I'd like to urge you guys to do would be to look at the low water crossings and see what you can do, to prevent any more problems. And I got to sit down or I'm going to fall down. But I don't have any idea what it costs a foot or a yard or whatever, however they do it when they put in a replacement road. But if you pick at the Paseo de Vaca, low water crossing where it comes down, if you came down from the Barquet and went straight, you'd go right into it. That's probably the worst one. But that subdivision back there that I happen to live in, very frequently when we get a good heavy rain, we don't have any way getting out of there. So, to me, it would be fairly simple to run some more 6-foot diameter pipe across the top and fill it in with dirt and pave it. I don't think that's a big expense, but it could be wrong. I'd like to urge you guys to look at fixing the accessibility in that subdivision. Then the next place is an absolute disaster is down at the campground. I don't know if you've been down there or not, but you need to.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
All right, thank you, sir. Next, I have Dale Mitchell.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and city staff. As you've noticed, I've kind of been away for a while, but I have prompted this evening to come and talk to you about the municipal complex. And I recognize that there are probably not too many people there at the dais that have been here the length of time that I have, and there's certainly others in the city that have been here longer. But our previous city fathers and city mothers provided for the city center to be here in this complex. Certainly NRC put this whole thing together originally by platting these lots up and down Don Drive and this area that we're in now as kind of for this kind of a city center. And you see the city did start here. There's a dedication plaque in 1992 for the city hall here. They occupied this end of the building. It's Critters, a restaurant by Mike and Penny, who was in here. And then Don Valls had the post office at the far end in the latter 90s before the new post office got built and all that. And then subsequent to that, I can't tell you going forward, but there was a recognition that we needed to build a new city police station, and they procured property from the ISD and built the police station in 2011. Sometime in between, the library had originally been in here, I think, in 87 or so, but then we expanded the library when we got the Shorty Ludwig fire station on a swap with the ESD and took over that building and for $220,000 rehabbed and put in a meeting room. And you heard the library report about how many activities are held in that meeting room. It's just swamped during the day with a lack of, any other city-owned meeting room, so to speak. So what I've heard most recently, after returning from the summer, was that there is a push to go to the second floor of the Village Shopping Center and lease out that area. I heard that from the ESD people that said that they're going to put some administrative offices over there too. I looked back on this municipal plan, a municipal complex redevelopment plan we had, and a comprehensive plan that we spent many, many hours on with a lot of citizens' input. And there's no mention of this, of vacating this complex here. We even had a municipal complex committee in about 2009-10 that looked how we could grow this entire area. Bill Angelo then went out and procured the next two lots over from here because the library had already been deeded a lot next to them, and they had that. So we had the three lots here, and the concept was to build out this direction, put in meeting rooms, put in a new council chamber, and have meeting rooms on the other side for the library, and it would be a total complex. We even had facade changes on this building that were prepared. Frank Robbins at the time was assistant city manager, and he put up facade changes on the outside of this building to make it look more modern. So there was a really concept that thought maybe this would be the anchor for this development of all of the Don Drive kind of a area. And if you read the city charter, the concept makes some sense here. Also, it happens to be closer to the population center of the city than certainly 1431 is. And so what I didn't find out in reading any of the minutes is that it didn't appear like there was any open discussion about this in any of the council meetings. The only thing that I found was that there is an entry in the capital improvement program of the budget for $500,000 to build out the new city hall at the Village Shopping Center. So I don't know how you can go forward without having some discussion with the public about the actual validity of moving the city hall from here to the Village Shopping Center. I don't think cost-wise it makes sense. This building's paid for. You've made upgrades on this building, and you could embrace the idea of moving in the direction it was originally planned.
Okay.
Time up?
I'm going to have to stop you. Time's up.
That's fine. Thank you.
All right. I don't have any more people that have signed up, but Mr. Wood, I think you had something you wanted to.
Yes, sir.
present.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jim Wood. I'm concerned with questions that have been put to me by folks on the internet and others about our city water supply, the potable water. This is a new concern that has come up just in the last few days as we approach the possibility of the worst flooding conditions that we have had to date. And it's oriented towards the effect of high lake water on our water intakes and the processing of our potable water. And I've tried to derive a few questions that I think would help answer the concerns, because these probably have been considered carefully by various people in the city. I was unable to reach anybody in the appropriate departments, and apparently there's nobody special going to be on duty this weekend or tomorrow. So I'm raising these questions because they could be significant during our flooding event that's imminent. I'll try to go through these real quickly, but fundamentally they're related to ways that our drinking water could be polluted. Are there any water intake stations vulnerable to any type of damage from or operation interruptions due to extremely high levels of floodwater? Is failure of one unit liable to interfere with the operation of the other two units, either of the other two units? Is high water anywhere in the system, the pumps, the plumbing, purification, storage, and a possible interruption of electrical supply that would affect the quality, quantity, and the system pressure? Since floodwater is usually loaded with numerous harmful pollutants such as fecal matter, TMHs, etc., are there any points within the entire system where contaminants may enter the processed potable water due to flooding or damage? Is processing significant enough to accommodate the high level of additional pollution in this particular flood? Are there enough monitoring points within the system to provide total knowledge of the system performance and quality, the quality of the bacterial safety measures? Is the monitoring manual or automatic? Is it intermittent or continuous? Are monitoring processors and display areas protected from flooding or other hazards such as fire? Are there alarms in continuously monitored area? What is the maximum probable time between discovery of hazardous problems and a direction given to the public for safety action to be taken by them? What reporting system would they expect to receive such information on? And these are just questions that I humbly present. As I said, they may have been carefully considered by a lot of people. On the other hand, there may be some of these questions that we could learn from. Thank you. I'd be glad to answer any questions if I've raised any.
All right. Not at this time.
Thank you.
But I have these on my email, and I'll get you an answer to them.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that's all I have that I know of. Is there anybody else that'd like to address the council during this time?
Yeah, real quickly.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Robert Mickey, I own 210 Flight Line Road at the airport and a couple other lots. I'm the chairman, I'm the president of the Lake Travis EH Experimental Aircraft Association chapter. This Saturday, we were supposed to have free flights for the kids, but we've delayed it, rain day for the next Saturday. So I'd like to just give you these pamphlets so you'll understand
Thank you.
what we're talking about real quick. And a year ago, we flew 32 kids but 8 had to leave because the weather was bad in the morning and we got a late start. March, we flew over 40. I've forgotten how many exactly. It's growing every event, and the city has helped us out by by providing some cones for us for traffic and so forth. So I just wanted to let you know we're going to have it again.
All right.
And the kids, this is for kids 8 to 17, and we have a better program for those that are older.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, anyone else? All right, we'll move into items of community interest. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0415, the city council may report on any of the following items. A, expression of thanks, gratitude, and condolences. B, information regarding holiday schedules. Recognition of individuals, i.e. proclamations. Reminders regarding city council events. Reminders regarding community events. And health and safety announcements. And I'm going to start it off. I want to give an expression of thanks and gratitude to all the citizens out there that have been helping over the last couple of days. I know I was out till 1:30 myself last night helping some people off of Barcade get stuff off their floor, and just driving around and seeing the crowds over at Continental that were going out into the water to retrieve the boats and docks that had broken loose and pull them to shore, and the people that have been really stepping up to help those in the flooded areas. Fire department going out, doing checks of all the homes, tagging all the homes with yellow tape so they would know that there was residents in those homes in case they had to perform rescues. City crews that were out doing works on grinder pumps and stuff to make sure water did not get into our system. Kind of something that Jim alluded to in his presentation. And I just want to say thanks to everybody out there, those that are cooking. I know there's some that have been doing a lot of cooking and baking and stuff for people, not just in Lago, but other areas that are affected too. So, anybody else?
Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave. I'll go after you.
I have 3 things I just want to mention. It's Christmas in November. There's a bazaar and a lunch that's going to come up on November 17th. It's an art vendor craft show with a homemade soup lunch that's being done at St. Mary's from 10 to 4. And they're looking for any vendors that would like to sign up to participate in it. Please, there's plenty of room. If anyone's interested, please ask for Sherry Rogers. She's the secretary at St. Mary's. Her number is 512-267-2644. Secondly, I want to let everyone know that the Harbor Hour Grill is now open. They'll be open from 6 to 7, and then they'll do different events in the evening, depending on if there's something going on, like a football game or something like that. Also, we have a new Italian restaurant that is opening on Tuesday. It's called Brock's Italian Market and Cafe. It's right next to the donut shop up near Lowe's. And they're opening they're open on Tuesday. Their hours will be from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. They'll be closed on Monday, but for Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 3, and then from 4:30 to 8:30 at night. And then on weekends, they're same hours in the daytime, and they're open from 4:30 to 10 p.m. at night. So that's a switch for something that's open a little bit later at night that you can go to and eat. And then on Sunday, they'll do 11 to 3. And I met with them, and people are very nice, Brock and Cindy. And their restaurant was very nice. So try those 2 places. I think you'll enjoy. That's it.
Mayor, I had 2 things. The library is going to have their November dinner at the Chaos facility on Wednesday, November 7th from 5 to 7. The Lions are doing the barbecue for it, I believe. So please mark that on your calendar. And then on November 30th and December 1st, they'll have a book sale at the library meeting room. So just FYI.
Mayor, I have an expression of thanks. We've had another resignation on the building committee, so I'd like to say thanks to Elke Tesnow, who has devoted 3 years of service to the building committee.
All right, I believe we still have our trash cleanup, bulk items cleanup going on through Saturday. Started yesterday, 4-day event. It'll go through Saturday. It's bulk items. So please call City Hall if you have questions, because I'm sorry, but I don't have exactly the definition of the bulk items on me right now.
Are they taking them over at the Green Center?
At the Green Center, it is at the Green Center. Yes. And November 3rd, we will be, 3rd and 4th, 2 weekends from now, we will be doing a focus cleanup event over off of Coyote area for residents in that area. And it will be bulky items, and will also include some small household hazardous waste cleanup for folks in that area.
When you look at Coyote, make sure you look at the easement that's behind it.
Yes, where the LCRA, where PEC power lines go through, yes.
That's a mess.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remind everyone about Halloween night. It's our night out with our police department and first responders. It's trunk or treat night. It's a great opportunity to get the kids out to a place to have a lot of fun, get a lot of candy, and do it in a safe fashion. So if you get the chance, please come out and join us on Halloween night. And I think it starts at 6. I think it's like 6 to 9. All right.
Anyone else? Josh, do you miss anything?
Mayor, our new general manager for the Lago Vista POA has joined us tonight. She's in the back row sitting next to Mr. Belay. Kathy Petrus. She's not scheduled to speak, but I just wanted to say she came in. We just met her a couple days ago, and so we'd like to welcome her to the community, and very excited.
Thank you for joining us.
Can we recognize one more out here?
Sure, go ahead.
So our own Russell and Wendy Orms were in Maine, and he was in a pumpkin racing regatta, and he brought local fame on us, national news, and won the race in a 1,200-pound pumpkin.
All right.
All right. We will now go into.
So many more questions after that, Mayor. I'm hoping at some point there's a video. Maybe we could post to the website or something, because I'm with it. I'll stop asking.
Yeah, I'll send it. I can give you the email address.
Love to post that on the city website.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got it in my head, but that's about all I've got right now. I know, I don't really.
Ron, should I call everybody up before I do this, or?
You can do it from down there.
Yeah, okay. All right, so now we'll move into our presentation portion. Number 1 is presentation of the White Cane Day Proclamation. So at this time, I'd like to ask everybody with the Lions Club to join me.
You want to go up there?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I didn't.
Dick didn't tell us to bring our best this time.
Yeah.
No, we screwed up, didn't we?
Yeah, I'd like it noted that last time I was the only one that didn't bring my vest. This time I did, they didn't.
You make sure that we do.
Where do you want?
I brought my hat.
All join me right up here so everybody at home can see us. All right, proclamation. Whereas White Cane Day initially served as a safety reminder to promote courtesy and special consideration to people who are blind and travel with a white cane. Whereas the white cane, celebrated since 1964, and it has grown into an event that is recognized worldwide. Whereas the white cane, which every blind citizen has the right to carry, demonstrates and symbolizes the ability to achieve a full and independent life and the capacity to work productively in competitive employment. And whereas every citizen should be aware that the law requires that motorists and cyclists exercise appropriate caution when approaching a blind person carrying a white cane. And now, therefore, I, Ed Tidwell, Mayor of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, do proclaim and declare Saturday, October 20th, 2018, as White Cane Day in Lago Vista. And do call upon our schools, colleges, and universities to offer full opportunities for training to blind persons, upon employers and the public to utilize the available skills of competent blind persons, and to open new opportunities for the blind in our rapidly changing society, and upon all citizens to recognize the white cane as a tool of independence for blind pedestrians on our streets and highways. In witness whereof, I hereunto sign my hand and cause the official seal of the City of Lago Vista, Texas to be affixed this 18th day of October, 2018. Ed Tidwell, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Anita is our president this year. So she...
There you go.
Thank you. Take a quick picture. And can I say
Sure. John, you're tall. Russell, you're tall. He's tall.
We may have to close you.
Okay, so is it point and shoot?
Yeah, you just kind of push that button right there and you'll hear it. You just kind of get it focused. You may have to get
Let's see.
squeeze in.
That podium's gonna be right in the way.
Yeah, sure is. Yeah, well,
It's on wheel.
Yeah.
okay, let's do this. We want to get a good picture.
Stand up in the chair.
Okay, everyone, Kevin, if you could scoot in just a little more. Perfect. Okay, everyone say whiskey. Yeah, okay, one more. 1, 2. Okay. Now tell me what you think about that. Take a look. Yeah. Okay. Oh, gotcha. All right.
Just hold it for about 4 seconds.
Okay. 1, 2. Okay.
I'd just like to say one thing. In 1925, Helen Keller met at the first Lions International Convention. At that time, it was Canada and the United States. Anyway, she had a very interesting speech to tell everybody about her world of blindness and deafness, and asked the Lions at that time to be Knights of the Blind. We're still doing that, and we want to thank the city for helping us do that. Thank you so much.
All right. Number 2, presentation from the Golf Course Advisory Committee and request for funding. And who's my lead on this one? Josh, I have you as the lead.
Mayor, I'm going to hand this over to Eric.
All right.
Standing at the podium, so it's great.
Eric Hutchins, 2503 Ford Cove. I'm just going to pass these out to the group, if you don't mind.
I've got one.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Eric.
How are you?
All right, for those in the room that don't know, I'm on the Golf Course Advisory Committee. We have a few subcommittees. One is Marketing and Community Outreach. I'm not actually on that committee, but those personnel couldn't make it today, so they've been doing the majority of the gathering information and coming up with ideas for the this recommendation and request. So I may not have all the answers if you have questions, but I'll do my best. The Golf Course Advisory Committee recommends a re-grand opening ceremony for the Lago Vista Golf Course facility on 10 November from 10 to 2. The purpose is to highlight the renovation of the golf course facility and to showcase the overall improvement of our course. The recommended activities for that day will be a 10 a.m. Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting ceremony, and we'll have a local band, Good Karma, from 10 to 2. There'll also be a bounce house located outside for kids and potentially door prizes. From 10 a.m. until close, golf specials will be offered. It'll be $20 all you can play for the day, and free golf cart tours of the course. Can't talk today. So on to the support request. The Golf Course Advisory Committee is requesting $736.09 for the ceremony from the City of Lago Vista. The details are $500 for the local band that's available. Bounce house with delivery is $211.09. Facebook, local and surrounding social media advertising is $25, and that sums it up. Some additional items that are free of charge are, we want to utilize the city sign and the water bill newsletter. Again, door prizes if those are obtained. The committee's spoken to Habanero Grill about potential specials that day. They're still getting back to us. And then the Treviso marketing team is working on some support as well. What are your questions?
Can you tell us more about the Treviso marketing team support? This is Treviso, not our Tessera?
Correct.
Okay.
So the short answer is no, but I'll do my best. Besides, we want to bring the local Lago Vista residents back to the golf course since it's been improving so much, and hopefully the water will recede off of the golf course. But besides the local residents, we also want to bring in the surrounding areas close by. So I know some of the members have been working with Treviso, and they have monthly events out there that they talk to their neighborhood about, and I know we're doing something with that. Sorry, again, I'm not on that committee, but it's just to bring in, we want to bring in everybody within a 15 or 20 mile radius to play golf here and try to utilize those residents.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, has the Golf Course Advisory Committee tried to go to any local businesses to ask for this funding support versus the city?
I do not think we have. Someone may have. I'm not sure that we have, because I know the date that we settled on has been recent because of different events that are going on the weekend before and the weekend after, and so I'm not sure about that really.
And I understand it's not a significant amount of money, but
Sure.
we have already invested over $311,000 in creating the new golf course environment. So I
Right.
just cautionary tale that potentially asking for small amounts of funds from the citizens that benefit from that, or from the some of the local business people, just
Sure.
rather than the city for everything.
Mr. Mayor, I think I can put some light on that. Our committee has been working on this for quite some time. We've been waiting for the renovations to be completed before going into this. The main thing we're looking at here is these are commitments that would have to be made, and they need funds now. Once we can commit to a date, then we can advance the idea to financial support from our businesses and from other entities, and hopefully reimburse the city for the whole thing. But the first thing that we've got to do is get this tied down so that we can have the event, and then we can go from there. I know that they have been talking with Treviso, and there is discussion about financial support from them. We're hoping that we'll get other sources. But the thought process was that we need to lock this down so that we have a firm date and that we can assure that this will be there.
Josh, is this something that could be funded from the golf course's operational budget or some other city budget?
Mayor, if approved by the council, if this is something we want to do, we could always pull this out of a marketing line item from the admin budget or from the golf course budget. Another option is potentially even with the Friends Group. There could be something, I think it goes back to Mayor Pro Tem. I think that would be one of those options for us too to look at. So any level that the council would want to support, we'd be able to pull it out of marketing dollars.
Okay, and I guess my second question is this item is on for presentation only? I mean, we can't take a vote or anything on it tonight, correct?
No.
Okay.
Normally, we wouldn't be taking a vote until November 15th.
Right.
Which is 5 days after the event.
Right. No, I hear you. But I mean, even if we wanted to do something tonight, we can't.
No, we cannot.
I think that all that we need, as far as the Golf Course Advisory Committee, is a general consensus that the council would support this kind of activity. And then we can move ahead with making plans and getting things underway.
I think you just ought to take it off golf course operations, marketing, and just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we want to celebrate the opening of the golf course, right? And we want to celebrate the investment that we've made. So, I mean, I wouldn't even bother to ask for our approval on that. And the golf course operation budget is Chris's to decide what, how to work with.
And Mayor, one thing, great point of reference is, this is one of those things where the Golf Course Advisory Committee doesn't have a dedicated budget. And so they have to come back in and ask for things. When they're an advisory committee to the council, they have to ask the council from that funding. If, as we've said before, if they're advisory committee to staff, then Chris could make that decision right then. And if Chris's budget didn't have it, there's another marketing budget. He'd come back and say, is there a marketing budget that could do it? But since it's advisory to council, as Councilor Weatherly said, they've got to come back to council just to say, do you support it? If council supports it, Mayor, then we can figure it out administratively.
To me, this is very similar to what happened last year. They came back about equipment leases and so forth. And we said, as long as you can fit it within your operational budget, do it.
Yeah.
And I would say this is very similar.
Very similar.
All right, so I will get with Josh in the meantime and see if this is something that can be done in that manner. If not, we'll put it on the November 1st agenda. That's the fastest I can get it on there.
Okay, thanks.
It may be just us giving them approval on November 1st, but if it takes, because like Josh explained, you answer to the council. If we actually have to take a vote on it, then it'll be November 1st before we can
Could
get that on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, would they be able to plan with the assumption, right, that, it's.
You know what happens when you assume.
Not me. Just you, right? Oh.
I think with all the different local businesses in the
Yeah,
market.
I think it's
that
a
they can
small
come
amount of
up with
money.
700 and
Yeah, I think if.
36.
I would assume that if we ran into some sort of pickle, that private
Right.
citizens would make sure that continued.
Right.
And we'll continue pursuing that.
Yeah.
It's just,
So,
Anything else? All right, thank you, Eric.
thanks.
Thanks, sir.
right, public hearing. The Lago Vista City Council will hold a public hearing and discuss a potential future ordinance for a zoning district change from C1C, professional business office, low-density retail, to C2, commercial large scale at 6304 Lowman Ford Road, Lago Vista Estates, Section 2, Block G, Lot 5. And I will open the public hearing at 7:12 PM. All right, and we will start with Roy Jambor is.
Yes, sir. Just a reminder, this is for discussion only. But as always, what we would ask you to do is open the public hearing, continue it, keep it open until your next meeting, when we would expect you to formally take action on it. This should be a fairly familiar topic by now. This is another property on Lowman Ford where the future land use map and the typical procedure has been to increase the zoning. It's not so much that our current ordinance doesn't allow these types of uses. It's just that we in the future anticipate a more traditional zoning district that restricts C1's type uses to offices and very, very low intensity retail. And yet these types of properties that front on Lowman Ford Road can support a heavier retail. Some of them actually already exist. This is probably the third or fourth type of rezoning we've had up and down Lowman Ford. Most of those have been in the middle of a block, other than the one that's on the corner of the new intersection. This one, strangely enough, is at the signalized intersection, the northwest corner, if you will, of Lowman Ford and Dawn Drive. The peculiarity, I guess I say more than anything, is that when we looked at the future land use map, strangely enough, in this general area, we found, for example, all this property that's currently offices and commercial type uses. The future land use map said it should be downzoned to low density residential. When we brought that to the attention of the Planning Commission, they immediately put it on the agenda to correct what they felt reasonably sure was an error. In fact, one of the adjacent property owners that showed up to speak at the public hearing, was at the public meetings during the development of the comprehensive plan, pointed out what he agreed was an error in their future land use map, and he suggested that they simply forgot to correct the error. So don't be surprised if that's on your agenda in the coming months to make that correction. It's on the P&Z agenda for next week to take a look at that. And we marked the map where all up and down the future land use map shows it as the regional retail, if you will, and that strangely enough, this one intersection, even though it includes C2 uses on the other side, not only does a future land use map suggest you downzone these existing commercial properties to residential, it suggests you downzone the C2 properties on the other side of the street to C1. So we think that was simply an oversight, not a legitimate suggestion that you change that policy. So for what it's worth, this particular applicant is contemplating retirement. It's a property I'm sure you're familiar with. Is I believe the business is called Travis Real Estate and Appraisal Services. He simply thinks that, as is the case, if you have a C2 type use, the new owner would probably not want to run the risk of becoming non-conforming if we ever clean up our zoning ordinances and change C1 back down to offices and extremely low impact retail. And we told him that it was just as common and offer it to a new owner on that basis, and they could handle it at the time of sale. But he was of the opinion that it might be easier to sell if we went ahead and sell it. We went ahead and did it now.
And P&Z was in favor of it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Unanimously. And in fact, that a lot of the people in the area that became aware that their property was shown as being less than it ought to be, and knowing that we anticipate cleaning up the zoning districts, if you will.
Right.
We have lots of other applications similar to this one, so
Gotcha.
don't be surprised if you hear these periodically. Exact same sort of application.
So, Roy, can those be changed administratively, or do they have to be requested?
They don't have to be requested. The Planning and Zoning Commission or the City Council both can suggest that the staff initiate those. As a practical matter, and I think we've talked about this before, that it's a matter of how time consuming it would be to contact all the property owners and explain to them why we're doing this, and, you know, all that sort of thing. And I promise you, if you're a slightly larger staff, we would probably do that. In the interim, we're simply waiting for the applicants to come to us.
Have you looked at the future use map and determined how many others are in this situation?
Yes, sir. We've, in fact, because, you know, the meeting is next week, if you'll go on the internet, you'll see that packet item on there. And I've created the new, it's actually a copy of the existing land use map, zoomed into this particular intersection, and marked all the ones that I would bring to the Planning and Zoning Commission's attention to question whether they should be different than what they're shown. And you'll see they're marked with bright green ovals and question marks on that map that's already on the
Okay.
internet.
All right.
Posted about an hour ago.
All right, thank you.
I believe the applicant's here. I'm not sure he wants to speak or not.
I don't think I need to, unless somebody wants me to. I'm just getting ready to retire, getting old. Sometimes, so I think it'll probably open up the market quite a bit for the better zoning. But, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Makes sense to me.
I'm good.
I'm fine.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and we'll leave this public hearing open. And unless there's any further discussion, we'll go ahead and move to our action items. Number 4, discussion and appointment of a council representative to CapCog's General Assembly.
Mayor, if I can kick this item off, this is an appointment that the city council does every year. Last year, we had the form for you to be our representative to the General Assembly, and then the request is for the city to name a representative. We do have the form included in your packet showing that you're representative of the city council, and then the way we've filled it out is a reappointment of our mayor as the representative for the city of Lago Vista.
Well, I'm happy to continue as our CapCog representative. Finally getting a little bit of a working relationship with them. We still have more work to do, but we did get a grant from them this past year, and looking at some other things down the road, so I'm more than happy to continue.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we adopt the appointment as indicated in the packet.
Second the motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimous. Thank you. All right, number 5. Discussion and consideration of resolution number 18-1771, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, to reapprove an interlocal agreement for public safety answering point, maintenance equipment, and training provided by and through the Capital Area Emergency District for the provision of 911 services within the district of which the city is a part.
Mayor, this agreement is a continuation of an agreement that the city enters into for the delivery of our, basically our 911 services and our point of access for that service. I believe the total amount as included in your packet is $20,050 for the year, and that is broken down into how we will operate, manage equipment, and how they will deliver services to our city. Specific questions, we could point them back to Chief if you got those questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Is this the same contract that we do every year? Or I didn't notice any changes, but I just wanted to make sure that they were the same.
Mayor, we don't have any updates on this year's agreement that I'm aware of from from last year's agreement.
Mr. Mayor, this is just standard and annual interlocal equipment, agreement with Vista or with the county. And, basically, we train our people to whatever standards they want. We maintain the equipment to the standards they want. And of course, we give a check for $20,000.
For you to do all the work?
Yes.
For those of y'all who are unfamiliar, when somebody calls 911 in this area, it first goes to C-Tech down Travis County. They'll answer it. 911, what's your police, fire, or EMS? If they say police, then they'll ask them for their address. Once they identify that it is in the city limits of Lago Vista, then it gets transferred to our own personal dispatchers. But the county, these CapCog, they are the ones that pay for basically all the 911 calls down at Travis County at C-Tech. And basically the 20,000 is supposed to cover the calls that they take to direct the answering service for Danny's people.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 18-1771, the interlocal agreement for public safety.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just notice it's for a period of 2 years. It's
All right.
it's a 2-year
Sorry, I
renewal.
missed that. Thank you. I had missed that.
Mayor, and as this points out, we bring it back, and so even at the 2-year period, we'll still bring it back for review next year. It's just the process that we do, we bring them back.
Well, and they require it.
Yes,
They
sir.
require us to. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. Number 6. Discussion and consideration of an amendment to the Capital Area Council of Governments interlocal contract for implementation of solid waste management activities fiscal year 2018-2019. All right, this one is the grant that I had just previously mentioned, the $17,400 that we got for CapCog for the solid waste cleanup. That includes the household hazardous waste that we'll be doing November 3rd and 4th in the Coyote Trail area. That's the first one. We will be doing a second one in the springtime, but this is the first one. Well, we entered into the original agreement back in April, and then they modified the way we report on the timeline that we report. That is included in your packet here. But basically, it's just a kind of a house cleaning kind of thing. They just changed one document that says on what dates we have to report our expenses. But it does, because we had approved this agreement initially, we have to come back in and approve the amendment to that. So I'm asking for y'all to agree to that so that we can move forward. Since we have it planned already, I would like to be able to
I'll make a motion.
report our expenses so we can get our funding.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the reporting function for the grant to the Capital Area Council for Governments.
I'll second.
There we go.
We'll go to Dick down on this end. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just Just one question. Do we have copies or templates of the reports that are required, and do we know what's expected on those reports?
We do have, yes, we do have the reports. For the ones that are passed, the April 1st to June 30th and the July 1st through September 30th, we did not have to submit those because our funding did not start until after those times. We were like the last one on the list to get funding, so we could not even plan anything until after September 30th. So those two we were exempt from, so we will be starting with report number 3, which is due January 15th, 2019. But we do have, so we have not submitted anything as of yet, but we do have copies of what we have to fill out.
All right, let me try it a different way. Report number 1, September to November, which includes your cleanup, is that due on 12/15? Are you doing, are you doing?
1/15.
I'm looking at a revised copy that says 12/15 right here. They marked it out. My question is if we have an event in this week, it looks like we have something due on 12/15.
Yes,
For that first event. And
Yes.
then you'll file a second one for the second event.
yes,
Okay. Just want to make sure I understand what I'm looking at here.
yes, yes. I'm sorry, I was looking at the old calendar, yes. So 12/15 will be our first one.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So I was looking at the old one. I'm sorry. Disregard report number 1, number 2. We start with this new schedule, report number 1 due December 15th.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, just a question. There's actually 2 tables in there, and the first table shows the January 15th date.
Right.
And then down below is the table that has been corrected. Are those tables schedules for different things?
They should not be, no.
Mayor, you're right. The second table is the table that we use. It's the updated amended.
Okay.
And we have the copies, and the mayor and I have that email that states that our first report will be that
12/15.
December 15th report. And so we have the sample, we have the requirements that have to go into that report, and it has that date on it.
Okay, cool.
Any further discussion?
No.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. Thank you. And number 7, discussion and possible action concerning a Vistago 380 Economic Development 380 agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to have to recuse myself on the same grounds that I did 2 previous times. The reason for that's my daughter works for the applicant, and I filed the appropriate paperwork with the city secretary.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mayor, this item is an item that council discussed previously. This is a 380 economic development agreement that will go in line with the economic development ordinance that the council approved. You do have an updated, even though you have an agreement in your packet, you have an updated hard copy of the economic development agreement with Vistago, probably to your left-hand side unless you started moving papers once you sat down. So this is a 14-page document. The economic development incentives included in this document, which has been drafted by our legal counsel, those incentives are 50% ad valorem tax rebate annually for 5 years, a 25% sales tax rebate annually for 5 years, and then an agreement for Vistago to pay the actual cost incurred for the utility line extensions and taps for this particular development. We have passed this information on to the owners of Vistago, and they have stated that if City Council approves this, that would definitely benefit their development, and they would be extremely appreciative of the incentive agreement.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just would like to, I don't see the owners here tonight, but I did want to remind the citizens that the couple of times he's been in to talk with us about changes in zoning and the agreement, In council, he has mentioned that he currently employs over 30 folks here in Lago Vista, and he's looking to expand that pretty significantly. So I just wanted to point out, I'm very supportive of this because it does look like it will create additional workforce opportunities within the city of Lago Vista.
Thank you. Do we have, Sir Josh, do we have an estimate of what this, in dollar amounts, what this 50% on ad valorem and 25% of 1 cent sales?
Yes, sir. So the ad valorem tax, let me just recalculate it while we're sitting here. My apologies. The ad valorem tax annually, we're estimating at approximately $7,000. And then the sales tax rebate annually, we are estimating at approximately $4,000. So $7,000 in the four, approximately $11,000 a year for a 5-year period.
And Josh, I think we discussed this before, but it seems like it's different here. When it lists out the ad valorem rebate, it talks about the increase on the project's value versus the entire value. And so we did adopt just the increase, correct?
Increase over the baseline, correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That was our decision before in the direction that we gave back to legal to put into here.
Okay, perfect.
And most of that discussion, Mayor, was based on the fact of similar agreements for future, same type of philosophy as we move forward so that it's a build upon of what the current value of the property is based on the improvement.
And do we have an estimate on the actual cost incurred by the city for the water, wastewater, tap fees, and the line extensions?
Mayor, we do not. We do have some general estimates based on the numbers that they're looking at, but until they develop their plans and bring back those plans and we do a complete estimate on the project, we do not know what the difference would be there. One thing to point out is we do not have impact fees are not included in our 380 agreements. And so those impact fees will still be generated for the project. That's a large number for this project as estimated by our staff. That's a significant number, but it's needed because it will have an impact on our water and wastewater systems, and therefore we use that for future development. So not at this time, but as they get further along in their development plans, we'll present that number back to council.
But they will be responsible both for the tap fees and for the line extensions?
They will.
The cost? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay.
And I just want to make a note here, and for everybody watching at home, these 380 agreements, these are collaborations between public and private businesses to try and bring things into the community that we believe will benefit the community. Yes, Vistago does already exist in our community, but the growth and expansion that they are looking for, it was something that we felt we really needed to keep in our city. With these agreements, basically what your communities are looking for in these type of collaborations, or what will it, in the end game, what will it mean to the city? And the reason that I asked for the estimates on the dollar amounts is so that you could understand what we were giving up as far as the sales tax and the ad valorem tax, and let you know that on our end, we are always looking for about a 6-to-1 return on these type of agreements. So over the existence of Vistago, we believe with the additional employment that he's going to bring in, the additional sales tax, the increase in value on their property, that the city will indeed have a favorable ratio with this type of agreement. And you may see the city entering into these type of agreements in the future if we believe it is to the benefit of the city and the people overall.
Mayor, and to follow up on that comment, this is not the first agreement of this nature that the city has done before. Although the 380 ordinance is new, the council approved this last year. The Lowe's Development Shopping Center was also an economic development incentive deal, kind of similar to what we have here. Lowe's had a sales tax type of incentive agreement over a 10-year period, I believe, Mayor's. It was the way that one worked out, which is now passed. So their agreement was just sales tax, and it provided for the percentage of their sales tax back, similar to what Vistago would have.
Well, Mr. Mayor, can we make a motion on this, or do we need further discussion?
It is for action.
I make a motion that we approve Chapter 380 Economic Development Agreement between the City of Lago Vista and Vistago Print.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous, 6-0. All right, number 8. Discussion and possible action concerning a Lago Vista Village 380 agreement. Josh?
Mayor, I will applaud you for your vision and forethought to predict that we would consider these in the future. It has happened already. That's very impressive. This is also a document that we've talked about previously as a council. This is a 380 agreement with Lago Vista Village. You will note that this agreement is a little different in terms of what we're providing for this establishment. This is not a new construction, whereas the previous agreement was a new construction. This is an existing agreement or existing facility and a new agreement to allow them to use 25% of their ad valorem tax for marketing. So there's a specific, they had requested to use funds directly for marketing. And as we discussed, this is an excellent opportunity for the city to see that they're marketing the facility. One of the concerns that we've had comments made is that we're not sure if that facility is being marketed effectively. And so we were able to work with these guys to look at how they could use these dollars in a more proactive manner. There are 2 different items that the council will consider. This first item is for the actual facility. The next item, when we get to it, that is for potential tenants that will go into that facility.
Josh, what's the baseline date for determining, eventual increase that they would get rebate on?
So the total term for this agreement is 5 years, and then the baseline will go from the existing year that we sign the document. It'll begin the following fiscal year. Okay. So we'll use the number for, if we sign tonight, we would use the number from this fiscal year, this calendar year as we move forward for the document. So 2018 would be the baseline.
Okay. Just a thought, but if they were not to garner any new tenants over what they have now, which is 0, it's highly unlikely that they would have an increase in value and as a result would get no rebate.
That is correct.
Okay.
So obviously I'm going to ask, do we have an estimate on these numbers?
Sadly, Mayor, I do not have an estimate on this one.
Currently, they're 0.
Yeah,
Well,
and even the challenge there, Mayor, as you're already aware of, is that if we're to look back and say, typically, what are these facilities when they get going? How do they generate growth and the estimates when they have new property values? But this one is a little different because it's theoretically never got going, for lack of a better phrase, and so we can't project what would happen there. We have talked to the tax office. The tax office has given us a number of what-if scenarios that the numbers are all over the place in terms of what the impact would be when actual businesses go into the development. But again, throwing any of those numbers out would be completely irresponsible. And I'd probably be wrong 7 different times.
Josh, what kind of auditing will we have after the fact to make sure that they've used the funds in a way to market their property?
So part of one of the things that's listed here, and what we'll actually do is we set up that follow-up that they report back quarterly is the way that it's set up, is that they'll give us their marketing plan, which they've submitted electronically, and then we'll review milestones of what have you done. That is in quantity of outreach opportunities and in the dollars spent are the two things that we'll look at.
Does this agreement allow for us to reimburse based on milestone achievements?
No, it does not. It allows us not to distribute based on lack of performance.
Gotcha, okay.
So,
yes, we do have the.
It's more punitive versus versus.
This is a performance-laden agreement that says you have to do this, and then we
Okay, then you
follow up.
get the funds.
And so in executing the agreements, we also have that ability that if the council says, yes, move forward, we will go back to these guys, just like we would for the previous agreement, sit down, have the discussion with them. We'll walk through with legal so that everyone's clear, so that we're not having any gray areas with them. We'll go line item by line item so that we point out those milestones and how the reimbursements have to happen. If that makes sense.
And Josh, can you help with the Schedule B? We talked about it a little bit, but in this particular agreement is between us and Lago Vista Village, not any individual business. And so as a result, they're not likely to have sales taxes, the landlord. So I'm having a hard time figuring out how they're going to earn any dollars underneath Schedule B, and why we've thrown in there 30% of the cost of the utilities and flat $2 sales tax fee. Can you just kind of walk us through that?
So the sales tax, the reason we did the two separate agreements originally, when we talked to Lago Vista Village, their request was for the items that we've included, which would have the utility rebates, discounts per se. Our legal decided we need to have two separate agreements, but we need to include the factors in the overall tenant agreement that would appear in the overall owner agreement that would appear in the tenant agreement. So even though 5.3, I believe, is the section you're looking at with that Schedule B, even though this is not something that's going to impact them directly, it is something that our legal advised we should put in as they are the owner of the building. The individual utility accounts will go to each individual tenant, but it was a requirement by our legal that it had to be in here.
So I still have the question that they'll have sales, they'll generate sales tax, and they will get up to 30% of what they paid for utilities in rebate of their sales taxes?
That's correct.
And what's the $2 flat? What is that?
That's the baseline for the sales tax revenue baseline from the wording in the state 380 agreements.
So it's some standard verbiage?
Form letter, standard, put in by our legal team saying,
okay.
This is how we define a baseline utility.
I will follow up and preempt the mayor because I know he's going to ask it. Do you have estimates of what this 30% would equate to?
I don't even have a thought of what that would be.
Okay.
No clue.
Okay.
So on the flat $2 of sales tax for each total strip over blank dollars, what goes in there?
When we do the individual agreements, again, when we set that up with a particular tenant, we'll fill that in with the tenant. So what happens, if you recall, we'll bring in a tenant agreement. Let's say Jack's Plastic Welding wants to go in there. We'll bring that agreement back to the council and we'll put the information in as a tenant comes. So for this document, there will be nothing that goes into there. It's the placeholder. For the next document, it'll be filled out in its entirety based on the tenant.
Right. If looking at the individual on 5.2 sales tax rebate, it does state that the amount will generate at least $2 in sales tax revenue. The way my math is, that's $25 roughly. So we understand it, each taxable when we fill in that blank, it will be a minimum of $25. Is that not correct?
I can't verify your number, Mayor, but I do know that the reason we based it on the utility is so that it's a rebate of what they've already paid, not just a rebate on their sales tax. This gave us an easier option for them, the credit to go back towards there, so.
And I'm going to correct myself, because I did the math based on 8.25 instead of 1%. So
1%.
I am wrong.
Mayor, that's why I just don't agree all the time. I didn't have a clue. Not going to go with that one.
I'm wrong.
I can tell you, though, when we have the tenant agreements, we'll make sure that we calculate and fill in the blanks. It's just this section, as Councilor Sullivan's pointing out, this section only has a placeholder spot for the tenant agreements so that it's duly defined.
It's in the landlord agreement as a placeholder.
Yeah, not the tenant agreement.
It'll be fully defined in the tenant.
Tenant agreement
It really
will be
has
defined.
No effect in the landlord agreement,
That is
other than to
correct.
say they're going to offer this, to be able to offer this to their tenants.
And that's where the benefit is for the owner, is so that they can say this to the tenants when the tenants are looking at, do they come to the facility? They want to be able to say, this is what we've already talked to the city about, and the city shows support for it. It's another way for them to market.
And how long will the tenant have access to these rebates?
Well, the tenants goes just for that 6-month
Gotcha.
build-out period is where
Okay.
theirs is listed. When an individual tenant comes in, we have the opportunity to expand that, but through this agreement, it's only for the 6 months that we set out. Yeah, it's a minimum request. It's fantastic for us as long as it works.
But the landlord will be able to offer these for 5 years to their tenants. So if they were to sign someone up a couple years from now, they'd still be able to offer the 6 month to their tenant. Is that
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Does this have a sunset on it? 20 years from now, can they offer this to?
No, yes, Mayor, this only lasts for 5 years. If they were to do something outside of that 5-year period, they'd have to come back and come to the city. And so individually, the owner's rebate is 5 years, and their ability to offer this to their tenants is 5 years.
Okay. So in year 4, does the tenant get 1 year, or does he get 5 starting at year 4?
No, sir, the tenant's going to only have that 6-month period unless they come back to us individually and negotiate a new agreement.
Okay.
The problem is the tenant isn't going to be able to have a ad valorem tax rebate because they're not.
3 years would have already.
Well, and they're not owning that facility. So unless they're the new owner, then they would have a different ownership rebate. And so all the tenants in these facilities will be limited by what they can do.
All right. Any more discussion? Because I just want to read this for the audience and everybody at home. I just want to, so for the facility, just so everybody knows, this is Lago Vista Village. This is the empty shopping center on Lowman Ford Road across from the current middle school that has been vacant for 15 years.
1431.
I'm sorry, 1431, I misspoke. 1431 across from the middle school. As you can see, we are trying to work with that owner to try and market that facility and get tenants into that facility. The thing that, the portion of this 380 agreement that applies to the owner is for a maximum of 3 years, 25% of the ad valorem tax revenue increase of the project's assessed taxable value over and above the ad valorem tax base line year. Okay, that's for the owner of the facility. In addition, any tenants that move in there for a term, a year, maximum of 5. We just discussed the limitations on that. But a sales tax rebate calculated as follows: the amount equal to 30% of the cost of utilities paid by the tenant during 6-month construction period, and be a flat $2 of sales tax for each sales tax transaction over a certain amount of the sales tax revenues paid over a 5-year period, up to a 5-year period, from the 1 cent sales tax revenues not to exceed 25% of the 1 cent sales tax revenues. All right. Owner's performance criteria. This is what Mayor Pro Tem was alluding to. Owner shall complete the project in accordance with the terms of this agreement that applies to the project, applicable city regulations. Owner will secure 4 tenants within the first 12 months of executing this agreement. I'll repeat, 4 tenants within the first 12 months. The tenants must remain in place for 12 consecutive months or be replaced by another tenant within 2 months after vacating the building, and which replacement tenants remain in place for 12 consecutive months. Owner will designate at least $40,000 towards marketing the facility within the first 12 months of executing this agreement. So, with this agreement, hopefully we will have 4 tenants in that facility within the first 12 months after executing this agreement. And that is all I have to say.
Mr. Mayor, are you ready for a motion?
It is open for action.
I would make a motion that we accept the 380 agreement with Lago Vista Village.
And the tenant, do we have to do?
We have to do tenants separate.
Separate? Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1, 1 nay.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve Charter 380 agreement for the tenants in between the Economic Development Agreement between the City of Lago Vista and the tenants that will be in Lago Vista Village.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second on the tenant agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. And we're on. Now. All right, number 10. Discussion and possible action of proposed funding and access agreements between the City of Lago Vista and the Rusty Allen Airport Property Owners Association.
Mayor, per council's instruction at the last meeting and the plan developed, we had a council workshop with members of the RAPOA on Monday of this week. I think that was a very good workshop, plenty of good discussion. Direction was provided. We created a draft from that discussion. I've included a hard copy. It was in the agenda packet, but I included a hard copy in front of you. I marked that with a nice green sticky tab as Exhibit A. Underneath that document, we received some requests from the POA earlier today, and so I marked that as a hard copy as well. You did receive an electronic copy that was sent. It was forwarded through me from James Peck, but I marked that with an orange tab as Exhibit B. And so you have those items in front of you to be able to look at the areas that have been changed in the original document. I tried to highlight each section in both document that had changes. So from what we looked at before, if it was changed by the document that I edited, and then if it was changed by the document that the POA edited, they should be highlighted.
So this is just between Exhibit A and Exhibit B?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There are some areas, Mayor, that you'll see in Exhibit B. There's a couple areas that were, I would say, more grammatical changes and wordsmith changes by the POA. And so if you can compare by the highlighted version, you'll see those changes in there. There are a couple areas that had a little more discussion in them. One area is on page of Exhibit A. It's on page 7. It's highlighted under item 6F. That section, as I'd put originally in the email, states the RAPOA agrees to abide by the airport rules and regulations in effect as of the date of this agreement and may be amended from time to time. One of the discussion points at the meeting was we could put the RAPOA agrees to abide by the rules and regs on city property. However, we had 4 council members at the workshop on Monday, and it was split 2-2. So the POA submitted a document that said, we'll just remove that section altogether based on the idea that whether it's in this document or not, the POA still has to abide by the rules and regs. I think that hits the crux of that one point, just one. I just wanted to highlight that one because it's not highlighted in Exhibit B because it's gone. It's highlighted in Exhibit A, but it doesn't have the 2 options that were discussed at the meeting.
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So just so everybody knows, what we are considering tonight is Exhibit A. That is the one that is in your packet.
Correct.
That is the one we will be taking action on.
Correct.
Exhibit B is just provided for your reference. That came in from the Airport Property Owners Association as their interpretation of the meeting that we had on Monday and the changes that we had all agreed to Monday.
And Mr. Mayor, I will point out, it is a little bit difficult. For example, take a look at the 3rd recital. There were changes there. That particular recital is not highlighted, so you can't, it's difficult to tell that that particular one changed because it's not highlighted on both of them. So that may exist in other locations. I just happened to catch that one right there.
So which of these exhibits is the one that we're going to work from?
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A.
But Exhibit B tells us where potentially the POA may not be in agreement with us.
That is
Where
correct. Interpreting things
Where they
differently.
interpreted things differently from the agreement. Okay.
And a lot of the things that they did point out were, grammatical
Yeah.
areas, depending on the things that you see kind of in blue, kind of grammatical changes.
Mayor, let me just clarify. The mayor's looking at the actual track changes from the POA document. I printed the final document for each of you and tried to highlight the areas that would have seen changes from their document. So just
Sorry,
apologies on that
you won't have the
clarification.
blue, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Please don't look for blue. It is not there.
But yes, to Councilman Sullivan's point, on page 2, Article 1, Section 1, there were some grammatical areas there. They're not highlighted, but all it was the capitalization of city council. Just some basic stuff like that.
And I think on Article 3, Section 1, that is just language that's a little easier to understand. I think both are saying the same thing. Am I correct on that?
Which section was that? I'm sorry.
Article 3, Section 1. They both, I think that the net of both languages is the same. It's just different verbiage.
Theoretically, yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. Except for the
I
liability.
think both have the
portion.
same intent.
Right.
I do think that the words matter, but I think the intent for both drafts
Is in alignment.
is the same.
Okay.
So, 2 questions. Number 1 is, are the 5 FAA requirements included in Exhibit A in some form or fashion?
Mayor, yes.
Okay, is the, I'm looking for it. Is the, thought there was something in here about $21,000. Is that adequate to cover cost?
Mayor, that's page 3 on Exhibit A. That's Section 2.
Oh, there it
It's
is.
Article 2, Section 3, under the annual maintenance fee. The 21.6 is lower than the number that we had previously. And
Does it cover the cost?
it does not cover the budget cost for the budget that we adopted for FY19.
So if we adopt it, then we're going to have to come up with the difference?
True, we would have a greater, more significant, there's a couple options, however, let me clarify. Based on the tie-down fees for the year, we could recover those costs. Based on the fuel sales, we could potentially recover those costs. I think if you remember on the last document, we had $35,000 listed there. So $14,000 would be the number that we were looking at. With the $35,000, we had predicted that we were pretty close to a break even annually for the airport.
So why'd you agree to the 21.6 if we need a 35?
That goes to the council, just to clarify.
I have a question about, about the annual maintenance fee, which is what we're talking about. Is this not the case where this started out at $18,000 in 1999, and then it was changed to $20,000 in 2009?
Okay, that is correct.
So would it be fair to say that using the consumer price index, that $18,000 in today's money would be equivalent to $27,756?
Mayor, I actually thought if you used the CPI based on that number, that the number would have come in closer to 35, 36. It just depends on which CPI, but it would be.
Well, I looked at using, I used the CPI calculator, and I used the date of January 1999 to, well, we can't go to when this goes into effect because that's not been established yet, but as of today, as of September, that figure turns out to be $27,656.13.
Ars, did you start with the 20,000 number in 2009, or did you start with 18,000 in
No,
1999?
I started with 18,000 in 1999. Now, I looked at 20,000 in 2009, and it appears there that in 2009, had we redone the figures and come up with what was equitable then, at that point, it would have been $23,131.92. But since we settled on 20,000, the way that I look at it is over the last 10 years, we've actually lost $3,000 each year, $3,131 each of those 10 years. So to me, that says that we have essentially given away the opportunity to have had $31,310 over the last 10 years, more than what we actually received.
Right.
So in my mind, that's what we have to look at. We have to look at the figure being closer to the 27,656.
Well, and I'll report that at the meeting on Monday, we did have a discussion about it. I was the one person that felt like we ought to stick with the number we originally had, the 35,000. And I think it's for two reasons. Number one, I think, adjustment for CPI, but I think more importantly, we've determined that the budget, the expenses that we're going to incur is in the 35,000 range. Mm-hmm. And so the whole idea was, let's try and cover the cost associated with this fee. And, Josh talked about the fact that we could recoup from our fuel sales and tie-down fees and things like that. But the problem is those dollars are designed to eventually help us on capital improvement, our matching dollars on capital improvement. So if we use it to cover maintenance costs, operational costs, they won't be available for capital improvement down the road. So that's part of the problem. I've got several thoughts on this. I guess I'd like to walk through it, and if you'll bear with me, I'll walk through it and then you guys can ask whatever questions you have. As Arch pointed out, from 99 to 2008, they paid $18,000 a year. From 2009 to present, they paid $20,000 a year, which is about $275 per property owner. We presented facts that our cost, especially most recently with the stormwater monitoring and maintenance management, it's going to be $35,000 a year. So the idea is we want to try and cover those costs with this fee. That's the reason why we introduced it the other day. At our Monday meeting, the mayor suggested that we bump it to $300 per year per property owner, which would generate the $21,600 that's in here. That's only an increase of $1,600. That's less than the increase we had from 99 to 2009 when we did the renewal. And I think the other thing is it didn't take into account either the CPI or our actual expenses. I think Mr. Chappie that was there, he said, well, because I asked the mayor, directly, do you want to subsidize these guys? And I think the thought was that the number was relatively low, so why? And I think Mr. Chappie made the point that, it's like the library. The problem is it's not like the library. When we pay for the library, everybody in Lago Vista can go to the library. They can go to the parks, they can go to the pool, they can play on the golf courses. That's not true with the airport, okay? We are benefiting 72 property owners and that's it. So we have to treat this a little bit differently, and that's the reason why I have such a hard time with subsidizing them. I recommended at that meeting that we, still believe that it would be $35,000 annual fee, equates to approximately $480 per property owner. So we recover the cost of the airport. Now, I was overridden on Monday, but I'm bringing this up because I want the full council to have a chance to think about it before a decision is made. Much was made of the fact that we're coming close to doubling their fee. They're paying $275 now. We're asking for an additional $205 on top of that. That comes out to $17 a month, okay? We're not asking for the moon. You're talking about their total fee. If we did make it $480, it's $40 a month. You're not talking about huge amounts of money here. And if all we're trying to do is recoup the cost to run the airport, I think it's fair. And I would point out that when we were at TxDOT, they thought that this fee was very reasonable.
Well, I was just looking at it from the standpoint that if $18,000 was good 20 years ago, then at minimum, $27,000 is what we should expect now, a little over $27,000.
Sure. A couple more points, and then I'll stop and let you guys go. Not only did we change the fee, we also changed the description of the methodology used to determine the fee. Mm-hmm. It is not one of the FAA recommended adopted methodologies for coming up with a fee. Can we pass it through and will they accept it? Maybe. If anybody ever questioned it and that TxDOT came back or the FAA came back, we could get caught on it. The fact that we used a methodology that didn't match the grant assurances. An important point I think that often gets lost in the discussion we have is that the city owns the airport. It is our asset. We not only have the right, but we have the responsibility to implement prudent and reasonable terms and conditions for private parties to access our asset. We also have the right and obligation to adopt the appropriate rules and regulations around the use of our asset. We've been provided feedback from FAA, TxDOT Aviation, and our legal staff that what we put together is prudent and reasonable and responsible. Ultimately, we may have to implement an agreement that not everyone up at the airport agrees with. And I'm sorry that that's the case, but we have a responsibility to all of the citizens of Lago Vista to make sure that we craft an agreement that is legal and it's reasonable and responsible. And so the other day, when we met, I recommended that we stick with the $35,000 so we cover the cost, and I would still recommend that we do that. So what I would suggest is we talk about adopting what's commonly known as Draft 6, but that we take the Section 3 from Draft 5 as it was before and use it, and that was the where we dictated what the fees were. Article 2. Section 3, those two paragraphs from Draft 5, put those back in Draft 6, and that's what I would suggest that we
Mayor, draft 6 is Exhibit A.
Yes.
So just for clarification, because I want to write these numbers down.
Yes, ma'am.
You're suggesting a annual fee of how much?
35,000,
35,000.
Which is
And
480.
which is 480.
480, okay.
Per-
And Arch, you were suggesting based
On
on,
the CPI.
on the CPI, a total of,
27,656.
okay.
The only thing I'll add to that, Suzanne, is that when Josh and I did this, I went to the government office that does the CPI, used their calculator, and when I plugged in 20,000, now that was a mistake. That was when I thought 20,000 was the number. When I plugged in 20,000 in 1999, it was equivalent of 34,000 today. Okay, if you start at 18, I think it probably would still be somewhere between that 27,000 and the 34,000 number, but.
But he was the math teacher.
I understand that.
Art.
I understand that. I understand
What was
that.
your number, 27,000?
27,
27,656.
656. Well, I used January of 1999.
So that would be $384
Annually.
annually.
I didn't know how many people
72.
were involved in that yet, so that's a number that I didn't have.
And as I read this, and this is more of a clarification, I'm sorry, legal's not here, but I'll ask Josh. As I read this, that's a set fee, so as more homes are developed up at the airport and more tenants, you might have a reduction in each member's contribution then.
Mayor, the way it is written, it is a set fee.
Okay.
And so would be delineated, they would determine how they would
I
do that.
I had a question about that because when we started this process was in 1999, and so the number changed in 2009, and now 10 years later we're doing it again. And so it appears to me to be an interval of 10 years where you basically go back and look at the numbers and refresh that. Is that not the case? Is this what we would be stuck with?
This was a 5-year.
For 5 years?
Okay.
Okay.
And Mayor, Councilor Davila, what we did based on the recommendations of the FAA guideline is to do less than the 10 years. We could do 10. We could even go with a 20-year agreement. But I would never recommend council go with an agreement longer than 10 years on anything.
Right.
We put the 5 years. Part of our discussion was that's a fair term. But as Mr. Peck has alluded to us before, we could go a max of 20 years and be fine.
Well, I was just looking at the fact that this was the history was every 10 years. So I was stuck with the idea that this is something that we'd have to be stuck with for 10 years before we could renegotiate that.
I think that would be a bad precedent
Yeah,
to
that-
set because this has been so contentious and I don't think anybody's gonna walk away from
Yeah.
this contract happy. So we probably want to reopen the wound again in a couple of years.
Right. I was just
like
looking
the
at
5 years.
Yeah.
I do too, but I'm just referring to the history of what's
Yeah.
occurred to this point.
But what we have in Exhibit A is a 5-year. And
Got it.
no one complained about that when we met on Monday.
Well,
Is that term delineated in here, or is it given somewhere? Because I missed that.
Mayor, that's Article 4, Section 1. It says the term shall be 60 months beginning, we've had a number of dates there, but we're going to say November 1st of 2018, hypothetically.
Yeah, I
till
just missed
October
that.
23rd.
Yeah, I just missed that term.
When we met as a group, there were 2 areas that I had concerns with. One was the fee, and the second was, when we got down to the rules and regulations, they wanted to scratch that out. And I don't think you can scratch that out. That's part, if there's a problem with the rules and regulations, well, we can have a different meeting and go over the rules and regulations, but the city should have in the contract that there are rules and regulations that the city has, and they need to be abided by. And if they need to change, if there's issues with the rules and regulations, then we could have another powwow and sit down and figure out what those rules could be changed to if there is a change.
If they need to be amended.
If they need to be amended, then that's how it works. But to eliminate that from this deal is unacceptable.
Well, I think it's
Okay.
still in here.
It's
right?
in there,
It
but
is
they took it out of theirs.
Oh, okay.
All right.
But, yeah.
And when we had our meeting, we were split between us and that.
Yeah, Dave and I agree that it should stay, and I think Dick and the mayor was
Okay.
potentially okay with it changing.
Mayor, to piggyback on that comment by Councilor Williams real quick, you mentioned looking at the rules and regs. Our plan all along has been, once we get this document updated, to just reinvigorate that discussion and revisit it again. And again, Mr. Peck has volunteered to sit down and roundtable discuss the rules and regs with us, as other members of the POA have volunteered to do that. But just since you mentioned it, I think that's on the table for potential next step if we get to a next step ever.
But you know, I also thought, I had the feeling from our meeting that pretty much everything else in this agreement was agreed upon, you know? Okay, so to see different wording on the day we have to come to city council kind of disturbed me, okay, period. You know, if I may be in a city council meeting and I have to read 200 pages of documents, I don't expect to receive a document at 3 o'clock this afternoon and I'm supposed to read it and understand everything that's in it, okay? So that's why we can consider Exhibit A, and if, you know, I'm not willing to even really look at Exhibit B unless we're going to have another meeting and, you know, I'm going to reinforce, I think we should go with Exhibit A, get something on the books, and then we can sit down with them again and discuss it. But we need to have something in the system. You know, they need to take this Exhibit A, take it to your 72 members, and if they don't want to sign it, that's fine.
Exhibit A being number 6.
Number 6.
Draft 6.
Draft 6,
Yeah.
okay.
With the adjustment of the fee that if we ever come to some kind of agreement on it.
Yeah. But they need to have something to take to their members and say, okay, this is what the city wants. Show it to all 72 members and they make some sort of decision based off of that, and then we go from there, you know? But we keep going back and forth. I mean, we've had 7 different exhibits, you know, we need to have something.
So my guidance was on November 4th, that was gonna be open for discussion. I'm sorry, October 4th, I keep saying November. October 4th, we would have discussion, we'd work on it between now and then, and tonight we would be taking action.
Right.
So we will be taking action on Exhibit A, which is revision number 6, as it is written.
Gotcha.
As it is written.
So the basic, I guess the only thing we have to come up there is what the fee is then, correct?
Well, I think the mayor is saying, take action on this only as written.
As it is written.
And
is my guidance.
I would suggest that we can take action on it and amend that one particular paragraph. We do it all the time. So I guess my question is, Arch has put forward the 27656. I will agree with that. I've got the 480, but I'm amenable to.
Just so you know, according to Rosenberg's Rules of Orders, we're going to go with Exhibit A, revision number 6, as written. And you are allowed to make a motion to amend.
Okay. Perfect. All I'm trying to figure out is there a fee that everybody can agree on when a motion gets made? And that's all I was trying to figure out.
Take 10 motions.
It might.
We've done that before.
If that's the case, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion. I'd be happy to. I will make a motion that we adopt the funding agreement that was in the packet that's marked as Exhibit A with the amendment that.
No, as written.
You have to make it as written.
As written, but amended.
Hang on.
Somebody else has to make the motion to amend.
Okay, fair enough. Well, then I would not make a motion to adopt
How
that,
about
period.
this? I'll help you out. I'll make a motion that we adopt Exhibit A, Draft 6, as the funding commitment agreement for the Rusty Allen Airport.
And I'll make a motion that we amend the section 3 of Article 2.
Before I can have an amendment, I have to have that one seconded.
I'll second.
All right. I have a motion and I have a second.
And I'd like to make a motion that we amend the annual maintenance fee to $27,560. Wait, let me look at that again.
You said 600.
656.
656.
27,656.
And I second it.
Is that all you have, Arch?
Yes.
All right. Motion to amend the amendment.
I seconded
It's been seconded.
Huh?
Yeah.
Dave did second it,
All right.
the amendment.
So, here's my amendments. Okay, we got this, I know we got this late, but I sat down and I went through it and considered everything that they sent to me today. I would like to go through it line by line or paragraph by paragraph and tell you what I think, and then y'all can rule on my amendments or not.
Well, I thought we had to dispose of the motion.
Huh?
I thought we have to dispose of the motion.
No.
Okay.
No, for the purpose of amendments, require the approval of the member who made the original motion. An amendment to an amendment requires first the approval of the member who made the original amendment, and secondly, the approval of the member who made the original motion.
Wow.
So as long as I got Arch's and Suzanne's approval, then I can proceed with my amendment.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, it'll be open for debate.
Okay, and it's about the motion and the amended motion. Mr. Davila amended it with only the fee being changed. And my only comment is in the second paragraph where we've got the tie-down fee of $40 a month, that will likely have to be, if that were to move forward, that would likely have to be changed to reflect the new fee. That's all I would suggest.
Okay. Well, at this time, since I've made the motion and got that approved, I'm gonna go ahead with my amendments. So if you would, on page 1 of 9, do it. This is Exhibit C. My revision is Exhibit C. That'll be your pink copy.
Wait a minute. Okay.
Everybody have that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so page 1, the third whereas. I went through what they had to say and what number 6 had to say, and I accepted their amendments because it was the same intent and meaning. I did not see any change in intent and meaning on that paragraph. You go down to the next whereas, I also accepted or I agreed to their amendment because it was basically just some grammatical errors and clarification, and it also had the same intent and meaning. If you'll flip over to page 2, the very first whereas, I agreed to their changes because it was just grammatical errors. Okay, if you'll go down to Article 1, Section 1, I also agreed to their change because it was just grammatical errors.
Where is the change? I can't see that.
I don't see it on either one.
It was, City Council was not capitalized in our version number 6, and in their version, it was.
Okay.
So you're actually having to kind of look at 3.
Yes, it's really annoying.
That's what you did to us.
Well,
Okay,
so, but anyway, but I can,
yeah,
so that's what it was. It was capital, the two words were not capitalized, grammatical errors. You go down to Article 1, Section 2, on page 2, same thing. I agreed to their corrections. City Council was not capitalized. If you go over to page 3 of Exhibit C, the one that I put together, Article 2, Section 1. I agreed to their revision because all I could see was it was a clarification. And it had the same intent in meeting, because we're not waiting till this agreement expires, we're changing it prior to February. We needed to reference that these were previous fundings agreements and subsequent. So
You're saying on Article 2, Section 3. Section 1, there's nothing has been, they're all exhibits that we have on Article 3, Article 2, Section 1, all three are the same.
No.
I think that's different than the one the amended package.
I'm saying that the intent was the same. The wording is a little bit different.
Can you show me where you're talking about? 2.2.
This is what they put in.
Previous funding and previous funding and previous funding. Material benefits, okay.
Well, and a lot of theirs, you see the, I don't know if you can, there was a lot of grammatical errors, commas and stuff.
Yeah, no, I was looking for the actual words to make sure I understood completely. Okay.
Okay, so now we go down to Article 2, Section 3. I agreed to their wording on that. Please note that mine currently says 21.6, but this is an amendment to an amendment, so mine would need to be changed to the 27,656. All right, you go down to the next paragraph, where the fee portion. I agreed to that just because there was from what I could see in their version and our version, it was just a clarification and a justification. One of the things that we had discussed on Monday was that the tie-down fees, we're only going to collect a portion of the annual operating expenses, and that was not put in Josh's version number 6, so they did have it in there, and that was something we agreed to in, so I put that in mine. However, mine still does have the $40 a month.
Right. In that last sentence, it looks like you took out one change they made a portion of. And I think definitely if we adopt the 27,656, it will be a portion of those annual operating expenses. It will not be all of them. So you may want that.
No, mine has it.
I'm looking at Exhibit C, and in that, the last sentence reads, the city and the RIA POA recognize that the city has annual expenses to maintain the airport and that the intention of these fees is to provide for those annual operating expenses.
No, you've got your pages confused. That's Exhibit B.
There says a portion.
You've gotten your packages, your exhibits mixed up.
Okay. Fair enough.
So mine does have a portion in it.
Now, see, I've got B up here, so I'm not looking at B.
Maybe it got printed out incorrectly.
Nope, maybe it got labeled incorrectly. No, the first part of that paragraph does say portion. The second part doesn't have the word portion, so I get your intent. And if you look at the mayor's option, it should have them both.
Yeah.
Let me see.
The mayor's option has portions
Portion of the
twice.
annual
Yeah,
operating.
I'm talking about the last sentence.
Mine doesn't have.
It was supposed to be, oh, it's down here.
It's down there. A portion of those annual operating expenses.
Okay.
A lot of these are just, some clarifications and stuff, but because I was,
We're being meticulous.
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
So page 4 of Exhibit C. Okay, the first paragraph, where it says, at the very end, where it says Rusty Island RAA POA, CCRs, in our version, it was spelled out. They just changed it to the abbreviation. I agreed to that. So they were just changing it to the abbreviation. Section 6 on page 4, at the very end, it says its members covenant and agree as follows. Ours had CCRs there. Their version just said covenant. The way I read this covenant was meant to be a verb. So I went with, I agreed to their version instead of CCRs. I went with their version covenant and agrees as follows.
Okay. Okay.
Then we go down to number 7. Section 7, I'm sorry,
Sorry,
city-owned
section 7,
lots. It says on page 4.
Mhm.
Let's see. Make sure I'm looking at the same
Section 7,
things.
yep, page 4 of 8. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. They added on the very last sentence, should city to decide to sell said lots in the future, lots will be required to be added back to the Airport Property Owners Association. In my notes from Monday, that was something that we agreed to. However, that was not in version number 6. So again, I accepted that one as well, because I do have that in my notes from Monday's meeting. Page 4, Article 3, prohibitions. I combined them. They had in their version taking out the part that says the POA shall not permit any permit or entity to engage in any temporary or permanent commercial aeronautical activity on the land owned by the RAA POA described here above without appropriate permits. I put that back in because I felt that the POA should acknowledge that as a whole, as a body, the POA needs to acknowledge that the city is requiring the appropriate, that the businesses require the appropriate permits, and then left in their portion that any member seeking to engage shall be required with the city, okay? But I felt like the POA as a body should acknowledge what we are attempting to do through the permits. But it's not on the POA as a body to get the people to get their permits, it's just on the individual member.
Mr. Mayor, it did look like you took out the list of the.
Oh, I did take out the list, yes.
And the only comment I'd make is that something that we pulled from the template that was supposed to provide clarity to everyone involved, and that was the reason why Josh and I had put it in there.
Okay. I did take it out, because I did think it was, I did think it kind of drew attention to other businesses other than aeronautical uses.
It does say, which makes possible or is required for the operation of an aircraft or contributes to the required for safety of such operation. So it is very clear that it's about aircraft operations.
Yeah, but the way I read it, it said was not limited to. And I did not like this is not limited to portion. So I just took the entire list out. Because if you say it's not limited to, that means you can come in and add anything you want to. And where does that, I didn't see where that list was going. See what I'm saying? Let's see, where's the Article 3? Yeah, the way it was written in version 6, prohibition includes the following, but is not limited to any activity or service. So, you know.
I can't remember what Glenn said, but it's not worth taking the hill or something like that, so whatever.
I'm a little more concerned actually about the next one, Mr. Mayor. That is.
Next one?
Yeah, the
Hold
next
on.
one on your.
I got to that yet?
Come on.
Are we done with that one?
My deep personality's coming out. Being decisive.
All right, so on page 5, paragraph 2. Again, this is where I combined version 6 and their version 7. They had taken out through the fence, and you see in yours through the fence is in red. I made 2 changes. I don't know. I have it penciled in on mine. I don't know if it says on yours, but first sentence: city acknowledges there may be commercial leases of RAAPOA member property and request commercial tenants enter into individual. I changed request to requires, because further down, in the second sentence, it says individual RAAPOA members agree to inform tenants of agreement requirement by city. So I wanted, instead of request and requirement, I wanted it to both say require. Y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I added back in what you see in red, individual through the fence agreements with the city. So the commercial tenants enter into individual through the fence agreements with the city, and individual members agree to inform tenants of a through the fence agreement requirement by the city. The reason I put that back in is from my notes on Monday the 15th, we had all agreed that the separate tenants were true definition of a through the fence agreement. That's the notes I have. So I put that back in there.
Okay.
Can I stop you
What was
for?
your,
My concern was about the liable, because I don't know that we can contract away any liability that the tenants might have. And it's the word liable.
I think all we're trying to do, Suzanne, is say that we're not gonna hold the POA members responsible if their tenants don't come down to fill out the.
And I think the verbiage that we have says that. It says we're not gonna hold them responsible for it. I have concerns about trying to introduce words that are legal terms.
That
and
specific word,
that
okay.
specific there.
Okay.
I don't know that we have the ability to remove liability from people
Okay,
contractually.
okay.
And we don't have an attorney here to tell us. And that just makes me, I don't wanna have, I have concerns about that specific word.
all right. Make a note.
Well, I think all that's saying is that we're not gonna hold,
Right, and it
The
says it
owners.
in Exhibit B already, or whichever, the one that was in there, the one that we were supposed to vote on originally. It
Yeah,
already
Exhibit A.
releases them from responsibility. We don't need to go back into liability.
Does it not say that?
It does, the one,
Exhibit A,
liability
Mayor, says
is,
responsibility.
yeah, yeah. The original agreement that we were supposed to vote on before any amendments says that
Okay.
they will
'Cause
not be
I
held
can-
responsible for non-compliance.
Because I did combine a few
Yeah.
things, so.
But liability is different than responsibility.
Okay.
Mayor, I have a question about a sentence before that particular section that you just referred to, where it says, "City recognizes established zoning ordinances that permit specific residential and/or commercial uses within specific zones at the airport." And my response to that is, of course, we recognize that because we write the ordinances.
Okay.
So is that really needed? I would say it's unnecessary.
I think that's in both documents.
I think it is, and if
Yeah, it's in both documents.
I remember, that was something, Josh, that they had specifically asked for.
Mayor, that was an original request from 4 meetings ago, plus or minus.
You know, that might have been in version 3 of the
And so,
document.
since it was already in there, it's remained and reworded because we placed it into it, but
I understand that it's
I
really
think that they
unnecessary.
just don't want to be zoned. They don't want us to, the council or any future council to have the ability to remove the residential status of some of their homes. I think that's what they're trying to protect there, and I think we want to support that. That's,
Okay. I'm just.
I think that's the
saying
intent.
that- Yeah, I understand.
And that one
I
had- that
got
one-
stuck on the word recognizes, because we do recognize.
We
that
write,
that we write the
them
ordinance.
and recognize them.
Yes, so we recognize that they're there.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Page 5, section 3, prohibitions and restrictions on access.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'm sorry, just to interrupt you. What are we gonna do with that word liable? Is that, are you gonna recommend that you follow what Ms. Bland asked and take that out, or are you putting it forward as you have it in your document?
I was still debating on that.
Okay.
Because what I'm worried about is the procedure. Because I'm making an amendment to an amendment.
Right.
And this is my notes here. I think anything that you want to change your mind, we would need.
Another amendment.
Oh, okay,
We would
got
need
it.
a third amendment. So I'm hoping somebody's making notes, because I think there was a couple of concerns like the tie-down fees and the word liable. That's the only 2 notes that I have.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up at the time, but I have a question about one of the whereases, but we can go back to that.
Okay.
So, let's see, where am I? Page 5, okay. Section 3, prohibitions and restrictions on access. I agreed to the POA's version. Basically, it was some clarification. They changed the word parties to properties on the 3rd line, to any other properties instead of any other parties. And then they added the very last sentence, should the city choose to secure the remaining perimeter of the airport property in the future. To me, this paragraph had the same intent and meaning. It was just a clarification of.
No, James definitely brought that issue up, and it was a valid point.
Yeah. We go down, same page, Article 4, Section 1. The only correction there was a grammar. Down at the end, you'll see in quotation marks, urban wage earners and clerical workers. In our version, it was possessive. The word earners was possessive. I accepted their version because it was grammatical correction. We go over to page 6 on mine. Section 3, airport property. They had asked that this entire paragraph be deleted. I did not agree to that. In my version, I believe it needs to be kept in there. I understand that when it was conveyed, some of the property at the time, that's in the past. That's not an issue. However, this paragraph does address all assets, equipment, furniture, fixtures, purchased with funds and monies paid by the POA to the city, shall be and become assets and property of the city immediately upon the purchase or other acquisition of such assets or property. Because it addressed property and assets in the future, I felt like this paragraph still needed to be in there.
Well, and it was in a paragraph in their original funding agreement. It wasn't something we introduced.
Go down to section 5, termination. of agreement. Number 1, the RAAPOA annual maintenance fee. Our version said maintenance fee, their version says annual maintenance fee. I agreed to that because I was just for clarification, same intent, same meaning. Go over to page 7, we're at section 6. Number F, page 7 on my version. Section 6, paragraph F, this is the one that they asked to be taken out. POA agrees to abide by the airport rules, regulations. They had asked that entire thing be stricken. From my notes in the meeting, the thing was while on city property. That was a draw 2-2 on the council members during that meeting, so it was 50-50 either way. But with Dave's comments, if we take this out and they agree to this, they're not subject to any rules and regulations until we come up with new rules and regulations. So I did not feel we could take out agreeing to abide to the rules and regulations in the interim. But I did put in there while on city property, because that was what we had.
And important that it says, and this may be amended from time to time.
Yeah.
Right. And that is all of my amendments.
So what do we need to do procedurally?
Okay, unless there are no further motions for amendment, then we vote.
on your amendment.
Well, you need a second before anybody we can vote on your amendment.
Not according to this.
Oh.
According to this, it says all I need is the original amendment and secondly, the approval of the member made the original motion. So you made the original motion. He made the amendment. Y'all both agreed to mine.
But I don't agree to yours with the current verbiage.
So you can either make a third amendment.
Per legal direction, since we've already got the First Amendment, we need to vote on the First Amendment, and then we'll move to your Second Amendment. And if there was another amendment, then we would go to that one. So
okay.
Dottie has instructed, we vote on Arch's amendment first, then we'll vote on the mayor's amendment, and as you said, the next amendment or so on.
Okay.
All right.
Can you restate the motion? I'm lost.
His motion was
I'm lost.
his motion was to change the fee to the $27,656.
Yeah.
And I seconded that.
And Dave seconded.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna be honest with you. Flipping through all this paperwork, I'm not even sure where we're at.
You're confused as
Getting
well.
all this just before we get to the meeting, there has not been time for me to properly vet this, to look through it, to see if I agree with yours, with theirs, with anything that's here. I
Mayor,
understand that we want to try to get something passed, but
Let me clarify, Mayor, and I appreciate those comments. Right now, the only thing on the table is the document that was sent out to the council with one amendment by Councilor Davila that says change the annual maintenance fee from the $21,600 to the $27,656. The only reason you have Exhibit A hard copied is because you had other exhibits and we wanted you to be able to compare those. So right now, Exhibit B and Exhibit C are not in question. It's only Exhibit A as prepared in your packet and the amendment that Councilor Davila has recommended.
then if we want some of the changes in the mayor's
We'll get to that.
agreement, then we have to make
Another amendment.
another amendment.
Correct. After you vote on Arches,
The first vote is not going to be on the motion that I made. to approve the document. We are not approving, or we're not voting on that yet. Dick, we're just voting on the dollar figure that Arch proposed, on whether we would amend this document to that.
All right.
Is that right?
That is correct, yes,
We
sir.
don't vote on hers first?
No, sir.
Okay.
We're gonna hold that until all the amendments are voted on.
Are y'all clear down there?
Has mud.
All right.
It's Exhibit A with
27.
2656.
That's correct.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay? Okay, amendment carries.
So Mayor, what that does is currently,
Yeah, I'll vote yes.
currently what that does is that establishes, Mayor Pro Tem's motion is to adopt Exhibit A, which is the agreement that was in your packet, with the amended annual maintenance fee change to the number that Councilor Davila stated. And now, Mayor, from your motion, you have that on the floor to amend what's already sitting on the table.
Is it gonna take 30 minutes?
Well, we just from a procedural aspect, because the question now becomes, since I don't agree to your motion and you don't require a second, your motion can't carry unless you make an adjustment to that verbiage.
That's correct.
Say that one more time?
The mayor's motion, an amended motion, doesn't require a second. It
Okay.
requires approval from the original motioner.
Oh, okay, I see. Got it.
But the way I understood this, she would have to disagree before we go into debate.
Or you're the expert.
How can you disagree before you debate?
Mayor, and clarify, I understand what we've got on our rules and procedures. Per our legal, if Mayor Pro Tem does not agree, then it can't move forward. Then we'll end up voting on her motion. If that fails, then we'd have to introduce a new motion per the items that you've pointed out.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, the only difference between her item and Ed's item is the liability in that one word.
Right.
Correct?
One
No,
word,
no,
so
no,
he could adjust.
No,
No.
the
So-
liability and then taking, putting in the while on city property.
It's all the changes that the mayor discussed.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of them were grammatical. and
Right,
probably do
no,
wanna-
the only one
Yeah, but-
that I'm causing a stumbling block over
It's
is
the
that
word
one
liability.
word.
That's
As-
what I'm saying.
And it's not debatable as long as she says no.
Okay.
But the further procedural question then, which is not a debate, if he were to adjust his amendment request to remove that word, could we move forward?
Yes.
Just in that one sentence, in that one.
And again, procedural, Suzanne holds all the cards. She's the only one that can object.
No, Arch can too. 'cause
Oh, I'm
he
sorry.
made the first amendment.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Based on that, do you want to reissue your request with a slight change? So I can then address the question back to you.
Okay. Motion to amend.
Presenting exhibit C.
See, I don't understand. So she can agree now, but then disagree later?
She agreed now. If she agrees now, if you change that one word liable to all your presentation, then it goes to debate.
Okay. So, I would like to amend the document to include all of my previous amendments, but to strike the word liable from,
That one
Page
little
5.
section, right?
Article 3, Section 1 on page 5.
okay, will not be held, okay, so it would read, individual RAA POA members agree to inform tenants of a through the fence agreement requirement by city and will not be held responsible for the administration of, nor for non-compliance by the tenants.
I agree to discussion on those, on that.
And Mayor, instead of Councilor Davila agreeing, the original second needs to agree. Whoever, is that Councilor Williams?
Me.
He needs to agree. The original second needs to agree.
I agree.
Man, whose
I
idea
know.
was it to come up with this?
Councilor Davila can be looking at these later. The good news is we do have our legal counsel watching from her conference and providing input, so we do everything exactly correct.
Okay.
I have a headache.
I agree.
So does that now mean that it's open to debate around?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I just had two things that I was going to ask you about. Number one, the third whereas, I do believe that that's more than just grammatical. That was changing the intent and purpose of that particular whereas. And then
Which whereas the
We're lost.
RAAPOA members are granted.
and properties have access via deeded easement to and from their property to and from the airport. That was the whole purpose of the next whereas. And that's the reason why I don't understand why we've changed the one above from what it was to what it now is.
Well, my notes clearly said we were adding in deeded access.
It's in the next whereas.
In the Flores?
The one that members pursuant to their covenants, conditions, restrictions are granted non-exclusive rights subject to rules and regulations adopted from time to time, local, state, federal agencies asserting jurisdiction to conduct aircraft takeoffs and landings upon the runway, owned, sponsored, and operated by the city. That "and" needs to be taken out at the end, but bottom line is that's the one that said, we took the language directly from their CC&Rs to make sure that we reported it correctly in this document. And that's the reason why I don't understand.
Is that the definition of deeded access?
I don't know the answer to that question. All I know is the language in that whereas is exactly from their CC&Rs. And when we had that meeting, they agreed that that was okay. And so I would respectfully request that that previous whereas, the third one, goes back to its original form. And then the only other thing that I was going to ask about was the section 6F. I believe that as it was written in the original document is the way it needs to be, not with the addition of while on city property.
I have that, I just had that in there because that was what I have written from our meeting, and it was 2-2. There was 2 people for it, 2 people against it.
And I completely agree with you, and I'm just trying to represent the other 2. Dave and I thought that it was fine just the way it was.
Mr. Mayor, I'll
Yes.
also add to that, I was one of those that felt that it was okay to put that in there, but after talking with some other people, there is justification to make those requirements on their own property. Things that were brought to mind were someone is very sloppy in their hangar. They spill gasoline and oil in the floor. Then they track that out onto the taxiway. Rain comes, washes that down into our system, drainage system. We then do our testing, and we're found to be not in compliance because there's oil and gas in the runoff. That's just one example. The rules and regs were set up not only to protect the city, but also to protect the individuals that are up there to help ensure that your next door neighbor isn't doing something that's going to end up blowing up his hangar and yours too. And after consideration and conversations with other individuals, I would say that I do not agree with adding while on city property. It needs to be, they just need to follow the rules and regulations.
Mayor, back to that point of order. As we said previously with Councilor Davila's motion, after the debate's finished for your motion, it can be voted upon. And then if someone wanted to make changes on your motion, as you already said, then there would be another amendment to change any items that were voted and approved on by council, could be amended separately.
But if the mayor agrees to the two that have been put forward and he removes them from his amended motion, we could then just vote on that and be done with it?
We can do that as well if he changes it from the debate process.
Okay. Okay.
All right. I will agree to those changes. That includes the third whereas on page 1, going back to the original wording in Exhibit A, version 6. And what page was that on? Section 6F, striking while on city property.
And they've already removed the liable. So
And
then,
I'd already made the amendment to remove liable.
so do we vote on now his amendments and then back on the original document?
Yes, correct,
Okay.
Mayor. If you are ready to move forward, the debate's over on that, you'll vote on your amendments as you clarified them.
Any further questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Amendment carries 6-1. All right. Now we are ready to hold a vote on the original motion, which was Mayor Pro Tem's motion. Is there any further discussion?
What's that one? I thought we did.
No, we voted on Arches first,
Right.
and then we voted on mine.
Amendments to the original.
Amendments to the original document.
So Mayor, what we have in front of us now, if no other amendments are proposed, what we have in front of us is Exhibit A.
What are we doing?
Exhibit A, with the change that was voted on and approved through Councilor Davila's motion, then with the changes that were voted on and approved through the mayor's motion,
Oh, okay.
and now we're back to that form with those two approved motions. If no other amendments are made, that's what's on the table.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion?
Mm-mm.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. All right. Council has agreed to our version of the funding agreement, and it will be sent to the Property Owners Association.
Mayor, what I'll do is, we'll clean all that up, we'll get it all written, I'll send it back to Mr. Peck, he will distribute it, I assume, to Mr. Barklow as the president, and they will get it out the way they get it out, and then they'll respond back to the city. So that's what we'll do.
And I would like to have a point of order here. I do have something I'd like to address. I know Mr. Peck had signed up to speak on this item. However, we have discussed this 1,000 times, and direction was given back in September that we would discuss this October 4th. We've had a meeting since then on Monday, and today was set aside strictly for action. So that was the way I ran the meeting, strictly for council's action.
Which was hard enough.
Well, it came in at the last minute, so I didn't, to make my adjustments, my amendments.
No, I just meant to proceed, getting through the
Oh, I know.
procedures of it was.
All right. Where's my computer? What number am I on? 11?
Number 11.
All right. Discussion and action regarding recommendation of contract award for the construction of the Loman Ford ground storage tank project.
Mayor, as presented in your packet, the city had this project for the storage tank. We did place the bid proposals, the ad. We received those proposals on September 20th. The total project is approximately 220,000 gallon ground storage tank, as you see here. We did have the engineering review. We did have 7 proposals that were received, and the low bid was $340,674. That's the low bid. The engineer's estimate, as you'll see in the second paragraph, was $332,925. So for us, very close to what the engineer's estimate was. Typically, we've seen these projects coming in a little bit higher than the engineer's estimate, but thankfully not significantly higher. The next section shows you that the dollars available happen to be $340,674. Listed in here, the staff recommendation is to approve the bid with Prime Spec LLC in the amount of $340,674. Eric Belay is here if you have questions of staff on the engineering side.
And what was in the CIP?
The dollar figure?
Mm-hmm.
Let me look.
This is a part of a larger project on the CIP, if I remember correctly. If I got this one in my head correctly, this is the one that addresses pressure plating issues.
It is stored underwater, and that's why with the total number sitting here of the $340,674, we have sufficient dollars to complete that project.
So it's under the CIP amount?
Correct.
This was part of the $3 million for
Yeah.
water improvement.
Right. I recognize the package, I just didn't remember the amount.
It's a lot.
I'm just surprised it took this long to get it to us.
We need to get that one started.
Yeah, they went a little bit.
I'll make a motion that we accept the contract and award it to, name the
Prime.
prime contractor. So we can get started on this one.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries. Unanimous. All right. Number 12. What did I do with my agenda? All right, we are going to consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are to be considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion on these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Number 12, approval of the following minutes: September 6, 2018 regular meeting, September 13, 2018 special called meeting, approval of resolution number 18-1772, participating in the 2019-2023 Austin Round Rock MSA Regional Air Quality Plan.
Is the quality plan, I thought it's its own item, wonder.
No,
Yeah,
it's,
I have it under,
It's its own agenda item.
it's under the consent agenda.
It's under consent.
agenda. It's numbered separate, but all matters listed under consent agenda are to be considered routine and will be enacted by one motion.
I would like to pull the quality plan out. I'll approve the minutes. I think we need to discuss the plan.
All right.
Just before, as a point of order question, this is not a discussion, this is not us approving an actual plan, but rather whether or not we're gonna participate in the plan. Is that correct? That's as I understood it. Like we're either, what would be in consent would be if we're gonna participate in the air quality or not.
Mayor, that's correct.
Okay.
This is the resolution saying we are going to participate in the regional air quality plan.
And then we figure out at a later date which tier
Correct, the
1
plan.
and tier 2 we'll.
So I'd say we go ahead. He's
He
asked to
wants
have
it,
that
he's
one
asking.
pulled for discussion. We'll pull that one out. Vote on the minutes, and then we will discuss
Okay,
Thank
the
you.
other one.
that's fine.
If that's the case, Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
A second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries. All right. Now, resolution number 18-1772, participating in the MSA Regional Air Quality Plan, and I believe everybody has a hard copy of that.
Mayor, let me just tell you how the hard copy was established. We took the two sample resolutions as they were presented in the last agenda and in this agenda. We pulled out some of those items, and we added those items onto here, and then we created our action items. We added 4 action items, which on the hard copy, if you look at them, the 4 action items says that the city will endorse these regional air quality goals. The second action item is the city will appoint a member of city council to be the council representative. The third action says the city will commit to implementing tier 1 and tier 2 measures. And the fourth action is the city will direct the city manager to implement these measures. As Mayor Pro Tem stated, we have not established the measures that we will implement in either tier 1 or tier 2. That would be separate action by council. At the last meeting in that presentation, the gentleman asked us to commit to our support, and that's what we would be doing here.
Josh, a question on the item, the city of Lago hereby commits to implementing tier 1 and tier 2 measures that have been recommended for all CAC members. There's, in another document we had, it gave what the tier 1 and tier 2 items are. Are we saying with this sentence that we agree to all of those?
We're actually not, and I'm with you, and I understand what Councilor Smith's saying, but it's not what we're saying. And if you wanted to amend and say specific items, tier 1, tier 2 measures, which will be determined at a later date.
If we could say that, I'd feel a lot better.
You can say whatever in this one. What we're saying technically is we will implement items from tier 1 and tier 2, not all tier 1 and tier 2 measures, but we can clarify it if that's what council wants to do.
So items from is the word, so implementing and then inserting the words items from.
Yeah, I had a problem.
As determined.
Yeah, I had a problem with putting a resolution side of a consent item, especially something that's a new plan that we've never been involved in before. I don't think this council should be involved in this clean air plan personally. I see no upside, I see only downside. It's going to require labor on our side. That's tier 1. Tier 2 is going to require dollars, future dollars that you're going to commit future councils to. I don't know what the dollar amount is, but that's what it says in the detail write-up that we had last time. There's also tier 3 and tier 4 that's also out there, so they're going to keep tightening the screws as we go forward. Personally, I don't think we ought to do this at all. I just don't think we ought to do it. Now, I know it's in the package to approve, and you can wordsmith it, but I just don't agree with the premise of the entire plan, the CapCog quality plan. Now, Mayor, you're our rep, and you have been our rep. Have you dug into this deeply to see exactly what the time commitment and the cost commitments are for what we're about to do here?
My understanding from asking questions and stuff was that it was up to us and that we could actually use things that we have already done as examples of meeting tier 1 and tier 2, and that there would not be any additional time or money unless we so choose to do something.
That's not the way it reads, but okay. To the city manager, you were going to go back and check with staff to see who was going to have the rows pinned on them for complying to the implementation of tier 1 and tier 2 measures. Has that person been identified?
Mayor and Councilor Smith, actually, we were, I know we jokingly made this comment about Mr. Monahan, but in talking to Mr. Monahan, he would be a person that city staff says would be an excellent representative for us, and we can request that from him.
In all deference, I mean, Mr. Monahan is a very capable person, but he's not staff. And if he chooses at some point to not participate or volunteer, what happens?
Then that would go back to city manager to handle that responsibility.
And who would that be? Is that you or is that one of your staff members?
Unless you fire me now, I think I'm still city manager. I'm just saying.
No. What I'm getting at is name the name of the person that's going to file the report to CapCog or to or whoever.
Any reports would come through me, would come through this position. All would be signed. It doesn't matter if Monahan does it, if Eric Belay does it, if Roy Jambor does it, or Chief Smith does it. They would all be signed by Joshua W. Ray, city manager. So yes.
Okay.
This is the same gentleman that came and spoke to us.
Yes.
Last time, correct?
Yes.
You know.
Well, it's his group.
And he, you know, I think I remember him saying that we could use your new schedule on flex hours as proof.
That is one measure. There's multiple measures
Yeah,
out there.
I'm looking at all the measures, but it didn't seem like we had to do.
Don't short sell yourself with other governments. They're pretty specific about what they're looking for. I don't even know if we've got the skill level to do this.
Yeah.
Well, but Ron, I guess my question is if we modify that one paragraph to indicate that items from tier 1 and tier 2 that we will designate at some later point, then we'll have control over what we're agreeing to. And if we don't want to agree to things that cost us time and money and resources, we don't have to.
I didn't get that feeling from the CapCog representative. Now, that may be what he said, but I don't know if that's what CapCog says. He maybe misunderstood it, or maybe there may be some weasel words that are in play here, but I read that document twice, and it's the most boring thing you can read. And whoever's got the rose pinned on them is going to have a lot of detailed work to go do to do these measures. You seem to think that there's one measure and we're done. I think there's multiple measures and we haven't even gotten started, and I think it's going to be time consuming, and I don't think we need to engage in. We've got other things to worry about than this. Now, y'all can change it. That's fine. I'll vote against it, but you can change it. I don't think this city council or any future city council ought to be doing this quality plan.
Josh, is there any way you can, I don't know if you were texting with Dottie earlier or whatever, but is there a way to find out what are the ramifications to the city of Lago Vista if they don't live up to whatever it is we say we're going to?
Mayor, I don't have to text Dottie on this. We've already had this conversation after the last meeting. What we're saying is, and I wrote the clarification on the wording, we will say that we'll implement these measures in a resolution, not in an agreement with CapCog or with EPA or someone else. It's a best practice that we're doing, and that's why staff recommends approving this, because we believe that we're all committing to air quality improvements and that it's part of a regional plan. So to answer your question, we're not contractually agreeing. We're saying we're going to implement a plan, like a number of different things that we do. Mm-hmm. This is a very similar act that we do on different items. So.
Bottom line is, if we didn't do some of the things we said, they'd have no recourse to come back and say, we're going to sue you, or you got to do this, or we got to do that.
That's exactly where we're at, actually.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, my only concern with this would be to have somebody at the table. This is basically going to be run by Austin and Round Rock. We're looking at the pollution that's occurring in Austin. That's the main concern. We're not producing enough pollution out here to be a real major factor in it, but I would like to have somebody at that table that represents our community. If not, everything they do is going to be something that we're going to have to live with without any input or without any say whatsoever. This resolution simply says we're going to stick our foot in the door. We're going to put somebody at the table. Now, I'm not arguing with Ron that this is probably going to be a very time-consuming, very intensive thing to get involved in. Everything that has to do with government, everything that has to do with the EPA is incredibly involved. But I just feel like that we need to have somebody at that table. We need to have somebody there that's saying, wait a minute, we're not the one creating the problem. Don't be putting this all on us. Because
that's what you're
I'm
gonna
afraid that's where we're going to be if we don't get in it.
Mayor, one point going back to Councilor Sullivan is, with the resolution, the council can amend that or can repeal this resolution at any point. It's an action of us saying this is what we're gonna do. If we get into determining our plan and we decide we don't wanna do any tier 1 and tier 2, we can repeal the entire resolution, or we can amend it to say, the only thing we wanna do is allow the city secretary to work 3 days a week from home. I mean, that could be our only one item, if she would agree to that, that we would do. So I think that it's spot on with what Councilor Smith's saying, that if we get into it and we determine that the items that we're going to do, the action items, are too cumbersome, time consuming, could have a monetary impact that we can't handle, council can take that action at any point.
Confucius say easier to get engaged than disengaged.
Plans say not so much.
And personally, I'm torn on this. I mean,
Why, you're the rep.
Do what?
You're the rep. You're the one at the table.
No, I'm not.
You're the CapCog rep.
But I'm not the Clean Air Coalition rep.
You know, if we could get Councilor Smith to volunteer for that, that would be really good. 'Cause
I'm not staff.
we could dedicate after that as the council rep.
But if I am the CapCog rep, I'm still not sure that I can fully support this. I do like the idea of supporting a clean air coalition, and I do understand that this is just a resolution and that we can get out of it at any time. But I don't think just me being a member of being our representative of CapCog, because I have no voting powers, I have no powers. I'm just a general member there. I can't make any recommendations. I cannot do anything to.
So what's the purpose of doing this? It's just to pump some reports into a governmental agency that does very little for us?
May I? Because I have a different thought, but I was waiting for the mayor to finish.
As far as the Clean Air Coalition goes, yeah, I really don't know. Because we're not really contributing, we're not contributing anything really to their situation. But we are affected by their situation. That's the bad thing, because we're lumped in that region with the Round Rock MSA.
Right.
Whatever happens to them, we're still subject to if they fail, if they go into non-compliant, we're still punished. Whether we're agree to join or support them or not, we still get punished. So it's like, you know, I don't know. I like the idea, but
I think we give CapCog enough money already.
I hate supporting something that we're not really gonna have a voice in. And just having a member does not necessarily give you a voice.
Okay.
Yes,
Mayor?
I think we could.
So I would say that, I'm just gonna, it's my last night here, so I'm gonna be really, really transparent. I think it's a load of hooey. I think they're measuring a bunch of hooey that doesn't actually tell us anything about air pollution, because they're only looking at one measurement and it doesn't really, it's not the full picture. That being said, we can get involved in this organization with very little effort and by checking some boxes and some things that we're already doing. And it's gonna give us access to grant writers and other grants that we can utilize and access for free to help our city in real tangible ways that have an impact on the environment.
Do you know that for a fact?
That is what we looked at, the entire discussion point last time. And if they're sending out notifications when their grants for cities under 15,000 that we can take advantage of, then we should be. We spent a lot of money to get the grants that we had prior to Josh coming here. We don't have the resources to pursue those grants. If they are willing, if we just sign up and say, yeah, we reduce air pollution by our work from home policies, and we're able to get access to those things on taxes that we already pay to the government, that our citizens already pay to the government, yeah, I think we get involved and we go get a grant writer and we get some solar panels and we make an effect in our environment that makes a change, that actually has an effect. That's all I'm seeing from this, is can we get something back for our tax dollars?
Good point.
Get off
plus
my high
we-
horse
yeah.
now.
I mean, because we can see who the players are.
Right.
You know.
And if it turns out to be as much hooey as as potentially it is, then we walk away.
Yeah.
Right? But there's no reason to come up in front of the EPA and be like, rude gesture, not interested. Right? We get nothing from doing that. If we play the game for a minute, maybe we get something for the community.
I agree.
Okay.
So, any further discussion? Nope.
Are we ready for a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor, before the motion, per the recommendation or the comment earlier, I just changed that one line to read, if it's made, the city of Lago Vista hereby commits to implementing Tier 1 and/or Tier 2 measures, which will be determined at a later date by council and staff that have been recommended for all CAC members by CAPCOG.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept Resolution 18-1772 with the modifications suggested by Josh.
Second it.
Right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. All right, consent agenda. All right, now we go to discussion items. Discussion only of a potential resolution by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, suspending the effects of Section 3.124 of Chapter 3 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances relative to the exterior finishes of the firefighter training tower to be located at 4711 Loman Ford Road and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mayor, this is listed as Roy. Before you get to that point, I'm just going to give you a heads up of what we're discussing here. This item is a little different than what council has considered before, at least in the last year. What the request is that council will suspend the siding requirements for this fire training tower for this one item. This is not connected to their firehouse or their fire station. It is for the tower that will be located behind it. The reason that there's some concern or questions at all is, for one, you'll have to suspend the requirements. Two is because there are residential properties that would encompass this property. So although there are some trees that'll exist around the facility, this would be a change to our code. Some of the challenges that you get on a fire training tower are you're going to have high pressure water. Seems like an easy one. Different sidings are going to react differently. If we allow them to do the siding that they're proposed, then they are confident that the tower will last and it'll be able to provide for many years of training and classes.
And from what I understand, this is also going to be a burn building. This will not be a high temperature burn building. They will not be reaching ceiling temperatures in the thousands of degrees. But with the pallets and the bales of hay and the things that they do burn in there, the building and the exterior will be subject to elevated temperatures in the hundreds of degrees. And of course, I'm a fireman, so
what kind of
I know that this kind of building, I know it doesn't agree with what our codes say, but it'll fall apart if you don't put the right materials on it.
So is this an exception?
It looks like a training tower to me, so.
Mayor, there's two answers here. Yes, it is a training tower. No, it's not an exception. So
It's a suspension of.
yeah, there's a difference. We're suspending the rules for this property.
And it's only for the tower. It's not for the building or anything else that goes with it. It's just the tower itself.
Yes.
So does this allow ESD to, is this what they want?
Yes, this is exactly what they're requesting. As it says in the staff summary, we did try and look at those ulterior siding options for them. However, as I stated, those options won't satisfy the necessity for what they need.
Okay.
Again, based on pressure, based on the ability to train in this facility.
And the picture that was with our folder is what they're anticipating it will look like?
Yes, sir, Mayor, what we included in the staff summary is the proposed option that they are planning to add as their training facility.
I believe, I may be wrong here, but I believe that was the exact building, was it not?
That is, it's the company and the building that they want to put.
That's cool.
I've seen this exact building in Houston Training Center of the fire department, and doesn't take away from the community or anything. It's just, we just don't have the same material that we have for homes. And
Well, over time, again, this is for fire department use, and in future it's gonna be for the school district to use when they implement their little training program for the juniors and seniors. But over time, they will be burning like bales of hay and pallets and stuff, just low heat things. This is not a full-on burn building, but they will have small fires in there. Eventually, where the metal windows and doors and stuff are, there will be black charring around it. But, I mean, it's a fire training thing.
Right.
I would assume that if there's a signage around it that says Lago Vista Fire Department, right, that has our Travis County Fire Department, that the citizens would understand that that's a portion of, right, that it wouldn't cause too much displeasure from the citizens. You would think. We kind of want our firemen trained, don't we?
Yeah.
And women.
How many acres did they purchase and what kind of buffer will there be between them and anybody that's gonna be close by?
Mayor, I don't know the number. Roy may know.
I do, but I didn't bring it with me.
Okay.
It's about 3 acres.
It's the corner they carved out the school.
Yeah.
You can see they're clearing the property.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's approximately 3 acres.
Okay.
I'll say yeah. I don't know the exact size, but from what I'm looking at, it is.
It's very deep.
It is comparable to the training academy that the city of Austin uses.
Well, so much for our clean air.
We'll burn natural products, no sulfate, no plastics, no phosgene, no.
We'll burn copies of the airport agreement.
That didn't get approved.
Well, and part of the reason why I'm asking is, to the north, it's just gonna be the high school.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
To the south is a road.
yeah, the Austin Boulevard, and I guess you've got that parcel between Austin and Shoreline. Is that part of Marshall's Harbor? Part of Montecino? Is it destined to be residential there? Do you know?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Mayor, that's actually part of, you could say Montecino, but it's part of that Woola property is right around there as well.
Yeah.
And so it could be, based on some of their plans, it could be residential, it could be commercial. I mean, it has options if they bring it back to council. The only thing is visibility from a distance and then the actual adjacent properties. We just want to make sure we present that to council so you understand.
Yeah, no, well, I'm just trying to give it a look. I mean, you go to the west and you got Loman there, and so, I mean, anything that'd be across the street, we've got that corner that's gonna be commercial that
And
we've
it
already
does-
talked
and
about.
depending on how deep in the property that they put it up, it drops down from.
Right.
From
Yeah.
lower.
Right.
So unless you're back there on Austin and stuff like that, you may only see the top half of it.
Right.
Well, my guess is they're gonna want to put it pretty
You
far
won't
off
see it
the
from-
road because
from
they
the-
don't want to
from,
cause
Lemon
fires.
Fork.
I mean, I could be off
Especially
base there,
with
but that would be my guess.
Between.
Well, if
the road
if they get a fire outside that building, then they need to do some more training.
It is gonna be located very deep on the property,
Yeah.
but there's an engineered retaining wall, so it's being backfilled quite a bit.
Okay.
So the drop off probably won't be there,
No.
not nearly, it'll be terraced there.
But it's
so-
not going to be in residents' face. Like here's this tower.
Probably not.
No, but they're also gonna have to comply with
Still
some
happens.
TCEQ
Yeah.
requirements. They will have a lined tank to catch all the runoff, because they'll be using foam, which is it's biodegradable, but still they have to catch it. So there will be some other things that come with a fire department training facility that aren't really attractive, because a black plastic line hole in the ground is.
Do they
Not
use
that
accelerants when they create their fires and so
Very,
forth?
no.
Okay.
And I say that, but if they're training, for the most part, no.
Okay.
They do some training with propane tanks.
Okay.
Things like that, if there's one on fire, how to put it out.
Right.
Things you might encounter in a home.
Yes. They may have demonstrations with gasolines and stuff when they put on little shows for residents and stuff, but for the most part, in training, you do not, unless you're specifically training with
for that
an accelerant, they're not gonna use it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to comment that the city of Leander Fire Department has a similar tower.
Yeah.
It's right on 183.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Completely visible to everybody.
And it really doesn't look that bad.
No, it really doesn't.
Theirs is
It's not
red.
that bad.
Theirs is red though, I think.
Yes, sir.
Can we get
But it-
I don't know
Donnie
what-
to paint it red?
I don't know what color they're doing there.
Viking blue.
Oh, Viking blue and gold? Yeah, there you
That
go.
color?
That is the one they're buying.
Oh. Well, we can, I like,
Well, it doesn't matter,
Yeah,
red or gray, it's gonna turn black eventually.
Yeah.
And spots.
It doesn't look a whole lot different than that modern building that's going up over on the west side of town, heading towards Balcones. That's black with that siding. Looks very similar.
All right. This was just a discussion.
I have one question. What is the material that the exterior finish is? Is it
It's
metal?
It's a steel.
Corrugated metal panel.
Yeah.
It's a
Metal,
very
okay.
thick corrugated metal panel.
Yeah.
It is. And it's made to imitate shiplap sign, horizontal shiplap sign.
Oh.
It's supposed to look like you would see on a residence.
Gotcha. Okay.
we can have the high school students build a sign that says, it may not be pretty, but it'll help us fight fires or something.
I don't know, maybe they can paint a Viking on it with
That would be
like
cool.
And then smoke stains will look like something coming out of his ears or something, I don't know.
An angry Viking?
Yeah. Nose, I don't know. All right, we ready for the next one? Yep. 15, discussion only of a potential ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, amending sections 3.106, 3.107, 3.108, and 3.109 of Chapter 3 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances to update various standard building codes to a recent version and providing for related matters.
Mayor, Roy's going to explain this one a little more too, but this was brought to us. It's one of the things that we do is we adopt the building code and the standards. As part of the fire department's quest for a better ISO rating, this is one of the requirements that we need to have the 2015 code adopted. Roy has worked with the fire department staff and with the scoring, the ISO scoring, to look at the code, see if there's any items that we need to change. Currently, we use the 2012 version of the building code. So we're all on board with updating our code and to adopt the new policies. We just want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do in order to be ready for the ISO rating with hopes of our rating going down or up, however you want to look at it.
So we're just going from the 212 to the 2015.
Yes, sir, and we did have to review those ordinances
Mhm.
to make sure that there weren't any particular provisions that were extremely onerous for us that we wanted to exclude.
Okay.
And there were a few of those items, and they were excluded.
Got it.
All this was vetted through the building committee, by the way.
Good, yeah.
So that they reviewed all that and agreed.
Okay.
So is the intent to have it for discussion tonight, and you're going to bring us back to us?
The ordinance next time.
Okay.
The ordinance is written and in there. If you want to read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
we provided that in, and the reason we didn't go with our standard format presenting it at the first meeting and then the second is just to make sure that if there are any questions, we wanted to go ahead and present this to council. The requirement is that if we're going to have, we need to have it updated and adopted by the time that the scorer, the agency, comes through to review our ISO rating.
And I think I talked to Chief Donnie, and he mentioned they're gonna come through early next year.
It looks like the first couple weeks of January.
Yeah, okay. So we've got time.
What is non-domestic use of harvested rainwater? What does that mean?
Irrigation.
So you can use it for irrigation? Okay.
You just can't
Thank-
drink it.
Well, no, you don't want to drink it until you filtered it. But
You never know.
well, that's a good point. I guess if you're starving to, thank you for including that, because, you know, I'm a big advocate of rainwater harvesting.
You don't want to use it for potable water.
Right.
Or connect it to your system if you're already connected to city water.
Right.
That's dangerous, because you've got backflow problems that could result in contamination.
Does it allow for, or have we thought about allowing for any sort of gray water ordinances as you've went through this?
I think we could work with that with LCRA. Is there still here?
He just stepped out.
Yeah.
That would be an Eric question.
Okay.
Because that's who we'd have to negotiate with.
Right. I mean, it's fundamentally, it's the same concept as us using the effluent, right?
It's much more popular in areas
Yeah.
where it gets to be dangerous if you don't have enough land. It should not be used on small lots.
Okay.
There's runoff problems.
Well, we do have quite a few small lots in the.
Is that part of this code?
No, I was asking if we've thought about that, right?
I'm gonna call for order of the day
What's discussion?
on this.
Can't discuss things that won't
Not on the-
changed or
Not
added.
on the agenda.
Okay.
Points out that you strayed from the agenda.
Is arguing with the mayor on the agenda?
That's straying from the agenda.
I will prompt Eric.
Never.
to talk about rainwater systems.
Thank you.
All right. You have
I'm
to
good.
get here, don't you?
No, yeah, we got a good one.
All right.
Good.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
Work session. City manager reports. Why is that a work session? It ought to be just.
Mayor, I have two reports. The first report is that the water level as of 8 o'clock was 702.8. That is our most recent update. And then the second report is that the city of Lago Vista does not have any active lawsuits against the city. That's all I have, Mayor.
Only seen that twice
I've never.
in my 6 years.
It only happens when the water level gets to 702.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
What'd you say, 702.8?
Yes, sir.
So, someone had put out that because of the location of the dam where they take the measurements and stuff, we were actually 7 inches or 0.6 inches higher than what they're measuring. So if they're at 702.8, Lago should be at 703.4. I don't know
That's
if that
'cause it
really
backs
matters,
up.
that 7 inches, but,
It is for us. That's our.
Backs up.
but, yeah.
It only matters with the spillway.
So those of y'all that are concerned about 705, you're getting close. You're at 703. All right, future meetings. Number 17, consider schedule and items for future council meetings.
Mr. Mayor, a few here. Can we get an update on the grease trap ordinance as far as inspection and compliance? We haven't looked at that issue in about 6 months. This is the one that, looking at some of the businesses that are feeding into the biosphere that creates the smelly conditions. And the second thing is,
It's underwater right now.
is it really? I haven't heard that.
It's not.
Okay. Second thing, after we do a lot of these tap installations around the city, somebody's supposed to go back in and repair and fix the cuts in the street, and that's not happening with the great frequency. There's a couple of them that I've been monitoring right now, and the people have been in their homes now for 6 months, and those cuts are still there, and it's basically like a reverse speed bump, if you will, that's in the road. Some of them get done quickly. Others seem like they either haven't gotten to it because of backlog, or maybe they've been, lost. But we need to take a look at that because, people understand a little bit of time, but, 6 weeks after you move in, you'd think that would be done before they moved in. And then I guess the last thing is and I believe it's in the budget, we need to figure out what to do with the Green Center, because we're probably getting close to maxing out some capacities, and one of the things was we not want to relocate it. So I think that needs to be taken a look at as well, because we have moved a lot of materials to other locations, and you don't want to be in the business of having to relocate it a second time. So something needs to be done with the Green Center, possibly a new location. That's all.
Anybody else? All right, executive session, number 18. We will convene into executive session pursuant to sections 551.071, advice of counsel, 551.072, real property, 551.074, personnel, section 551.087, economic development, Texas Government Code, and section 1.05, Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct regarding A, consultation with legal counsel concerning any regular meeting agenda item requiring confidential attorney-client advice necessitated by the deliberation or discussion of said item as needed. B, consultation with legal counsel and discussion concerning possible real estate acquisition, management, or divestiture and attendant matters thereto. C, consultation with legal counsel regarding contractual claims or possible claims or charges, contractual modifications, and questions related thereto. D, consultation with legal counsel and deliberate economic development incentives for projects located within the city of Lago Vista. E, consultation with legal counsel concerning the duties of present public servants under the city of Lago Vista's ethics ordinance at 9:48 p.m.
I'm going outside.
Haley, you having fun?
I gotta go to the restroom first.
I'm surprised you still show up. But thank you. As always.